Hobbs in motion. It's Tunga Bailoa circling out of the pocket again and sprinting down the sideline. He's got Bunk in front of him and a touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
In the Michigan territory, Stroud winds up, throws a deep ball sideline. Caught! Touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
From the 30-yard line, Singleton with running room. And then he turns on the Jets past the 50-yard line. Stays in bounds. They will not catch up. Singleton all the way.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
McCarthy under pressure, back shoulder throw, caught. Cornelius Johnson breaking it, still on his feet. Cornelius Johnson sprinting. Touchdown Michigan, 69 yards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
If you're Tulane. Pratt gonna take out his do-it-yourself kit and picks up the first down.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
And that's picked off. Roadrunners have it. Need some blocks, and this could be 6. The blocks are made inside the 10, the 5, touchdown. D'Adrian Taylor.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome into 365 Sports here on your Tuesday. I'll get right to it. Yesterday we had a software glitch in our computer. It was definitely not our brand new fantastic internet in United Private Networks and froze up for about 40 minutes. Solidly. So we could not bring you the show, but we have what we recorded yesterday with James Crepea coming up pretty much in the second segment. So what you did not get to see yesterday, and you might have seen some of it online, or if you were here locally and saw some of it on the CW last night, we did release some of that. But the full interview with James Crepea, who opened from the Oregonian, who opened up kind of a big can of questions on George Kliavkov on last Friday. He was with us yesterday. Smokey is off to Florida to spend some time with his brothers here before football season starts, so he'll be gone for the rest of the week. And then Craig heads out on a much-needed and deserved vacation next week.
I'll be out next week. I'm excited if you can't tell. You had your time with the wedding a little while ago. I think everybody's kind of had their time here. And look, don't get me wrong, we've had little off days, but I'm fired up to like completely turn the switch off, like entirely, like don't write, don't anything. So we got another 4 shows, got many hours to talk before that happens, but I am looking forward to it, but I'm also glad to be here today as well. And with James Crepea, glad we were able to talk to him about just all things Pac-12 as far as the media days and his experience and his line of question. As you mentioned, he got really in depth on that, and also talked a bit about what he thinks of the whole Oregon and Big Ten noise that's out there, that's been out there really for a couple of years now. That sort of has died down for the most part because it became overshadowed by the Pac and the Big 12 and all of that kind of jazz. But that's always remained kind of an underlying story is, well, what if the Big Ten takes Oregon and Washington? And we've never really stomped that out completely. I still don't think that you can necessarily, at least for the long term, but he does try to provide some clarity on that Oregon position as well. So, yeah, I think some good stuff coming up from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some stories to get to. I will tell you this, Craig, there's nothing better. And I was gone. I would miss 11 shows in a row, which was magical. But like I would get like some of the group texts when there'd be like big news. I would be like, it would hit me and I'd be like, oh, is that today?
Yeah, right.
That's the kind of vacation that's the best,
Yes.
where you're, oh, is that today?
Oh, it's Wednesday? Wow, that's weird.
Yeah. Oh, good. You know what? There was a bird. I'm gonna watch him for a second. That's how it kind of was. I'm gonna go watch these people try and surf. And tell the surf instructor I'm not interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody needs that at least once or twice a year as a recharge. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that and just kind of turning my brain off. And hey, by the time I get back, which I just hope to make it there first. It's only Tuesday right now. I can't get too excited, but hopefully there's some resolution on maybe some of the things we've been talking about at length. I doubt it. But if anything, we'll be one, step closer to the football season. And by the time I do get back, it will be a situation where practices are underway.
Yeah.
I was talking to Grayson about that earlier today. And here we are at the end of the month, and we got full fall camp about to start up all around the country. So very excited about the fact that we're not too far away from that.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, some big news coming out of Ann Arbor, Michigan today is Jim Harbaugh is facing a 4-game suspension for it's a negotiated resolution, as they're calling it, tied to the NCAA recruiting investigation in which Harbaugh faces a level 1 violation, the most serious kind in the purview. Those first 4 games are East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. Former Michigan defensive coordinator, and I've already forgot his name, and Mike McDonald's now with the Ravens, has a 1-year show cause penalty, but he's going to be with the Ravens, so that's not really that big of a thing. And so the offensive coordinator and another coach could also face some suspensions during that time, maybe one game to Sharon Moore and tight ends coach Grant Newsom. They're both expected to be sanctioned, lesser in scope than Harbaugh's 4-game penalty. But this is more or less because Harbaugh lied to the NCAA when they were investigating it, instead of cooperating fully. The fact that he got out with four games, and it's the potentially easiest 4 games on their schedule, although ECU is one of those teams who can come into places and seemingly, block 2 punts and, return an interception for a touchdown, and you've got a game all of a sudden. But Jim Harbaugh facing a 4-game suspension to start the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of hamburger jokes going around, and a lot of poking at what people do end up getting in trouble for when it comes to the NCAA versus what people don't get in trouble for. I think sometimes we lose sight of their sort of ballpark that they can work with. They're not the police. They can't just and not in any way, shape, or form is this a police matter that we're dealing with anyways. But there's just certain stories that have come along, and you're like, why didn't Tennessee get worse than they got? Or why didn't Baylor get worse than they got? Or why didn't Miami back in, or whatever, or Penn State? We've seen pushback. And this, though, was not one of those situations where you're wondering about the legal side. It was just a matter of, how big of a deal is this really? And, you look at some of the rules that were, allegedly broken or whatnot. And it was very curious about how this would play out. But one thing that we do know when it comes to the NCAA, as confusing as some of their hand-me-down punishments or, decisions may be, just bottom line is don't lie, I think, is the one thing that you can take away. There's questions about a lot of other things about how, they come to decisions. But I think the main thing to keep in mind is just not to lie. You can fight back is better than lying. But cooperating is certainly better than lying. And yeah, he allegedly was, in their eyes, dishonest when talking about some of their level or some of their violations. And to lie is, in their eyes, a level 1 violation. So even if you're talking about some level 2s, but you're lying about them, you're therefore, in their eyes, committing a level 1 violation. And that can, be a 6-game suspension. So, this is a situation where I think the punishment doesn't necessarily fit the. I don't know if the crime dictates the punishment. It's just that the line did in the end, and that's really all there is to it. So very interesting to see that come down. Obviously, he wasn't the only one that was committing some violations or allegedly committing violations during the COVID period. He was not the only one that was probably buying a burger for a recruit. He's not the only one that was having meetings when you weren't supposed to. I think we've seen others, alleged to have done that and so forth. But, in this situation, he wasn't honest enough for the folks in charge, and they've decided to hand down what looks like a 4-game suspension. So I know there's still some resolution to icing on the cake to be done here. But very interesting. Like I said, I guess the lesson is just don't lie to the NCAA and you should be okay. But then again, it's the NCAA. So who the heck really knows what you're supposed to do at any given moment?
Yeah, and look, it's not a good look for Michigan to start the year. This is a team that's probably going to contend for the college football playoff. They've got the best quarterback they've had in a very long time in J.J. McCarthy coming back, and he looks to be probably another year better. They've really taken control of that conference and finally slayed that Ohio State dragon that was just on their backs forever. But to start off the year this way, regardless if it's your easiest 4 games or not, just not a good look for the Wolverines.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's going to have to miss games, and that is a bad look. I think most Michigan people are probably still, still unfazed by any of this. It's just anything a little annoyed by the fact that he's going to miss some time. I think that they should be okay in the long run, but this could have been handled probably a little bit better on his end. But now they've got to, I guess, come to a resolution on exactly what they're going to do here. But 4 games is kind of the, the baseline for this. And I guess there's, some negotiating as far as what the actual final penalty will be. But yeah, you never want your head coach to not be on the sidelines, especially to kick off the season. They've got East Carolina, they've got UNLV and Bowling Green, and then they bring in Rutgers to kick off Big Ten play. So that's a 4-0 start with or without Harbaugh in my mind. But yeah, you'd much rather have him out there. So that's an interesting piece of news, and I'm curious to see how long it takes them to come to. Obviously it can't take too long to come to final determination, but I'm curious to see how long it takes to kind of put a bow on this thing, and he can get his game served and then go about his business.
Yeah, absolutely. So on to the ACC, and their media days underway now. Jim Phillips addressed today, and obviously not people aren't as feverish after Jim Phillips as they would be after George Kliavkoff, as we saw on Friday, but he does have several big issues to get to. The biggest of which is that, in the spring, I wouldn't call it an attempted coup, but you saw the first steps of teams trying to find out what their real value is or what their value could be in the new world of college football, and trying to figure out how to get out of the infinity contract that they apparently all signed. So that was something that happened. And this is the first time that he's really had to address it in the public sphere of media days. He said, we all saw what happened in the springtime, but the group has come together in a way that demonstrates they want to work together to find solutions. So he's painting a rosy picture, Craig. And here's the thing. Right now, he's got 13 years of a rosy picture he can continue to paint. But, and I say this as someone who's been here in Big 12 country for a long time, and your whole life, these are like the first, this isn't the shot heard around the world or anything when it comes to ACC realignment. But these are the first things that start to happen, that if you can't figure out a way to make your league more valuable, that when the time comes where people can afford to leave and get out of contracts and negotiate these things out, these are the things that you have to be aware of down the line.
Yeah, I think if anything, these last couple of years have been a big wake-up call for maybe folks like himself who thought, we're under a contract for the long term. We don't really need to worry about our backyard all that much right now. We can wait on this. And it's like, nuh-uh, you better take care of what you can while you can. And look, I still think that contract's a pretty big albatross for any teams. I know that, they can try to test that, and I'm sure there's theories out there that at some point they will. I imagine they will before the 13 years is up. I just can't foresee a situation where somebody doesn't try to test that bad boy, right, and take a lockpick to it. But as for right now, they are under contract for a very long time, and there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of wiggle room, at least for the moment. Now, I'm sure for especially realignment heads that this will be like the story now for the next 10 years. I don't have as much interest in a daily basis discussing this for the next decade, sorry, but on occasion, like when he speaks, and yeah, it's worthwhile to kind of see what's being bandied about. And in this case, I think that he acknowledges that they had to deal with some issues, but that now it appears after some concessions and after some discussions that everything's all quiet on the Western Front for at least the time being, and they can move forward. And, I think, for as much as the Big 12 wants to fly the flag as the number 3 conference and is trying to do that, the ACC might be the most strongly positioned, and I don't even know if it's might be.
Currently they're third.
Yeah.
But I think that jockeys a little bit, in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But
right now they're third. I mean, the length of their contract, but the money part is obviously the part that's the bad number in the equation, that they have to kind of, figure some things out as far as that goes for the long term to be as stable as they want it to be. But yeah, in the short term, near term, there might be a little rattling of the cage here and there. There might be, some booster club president that speaks up about Florida State in a meeting or something that goes viral, and those kind of things are probably still going to occur. And certainly the debate about what could happen is going to be that's never going to end, because people love discussing realignment and scenarios, and especially now I think with what Florida State and the what do they call them, the
hateful eight, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I know it's not Four Corners.
Yeah,
that's just branded into my brain now at this point. But whatever that group, the big, I forget.
The Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven.
I was thinking Sinister Six, like a Spider-Man. Yeah. The Magnificent Seven. I'm sure we're not done hearing them talk, but for right now, I don't think there's any looming threat that suddenly they're going to break off and there's going to be 4 headed to the SEC. I mean, I think we're pretty far away from that as far as July of 2023 goes. Now, again, I'm sure there will be things that pop up, but a looming threat, no. And if anything, I feel like we've seen now more and more, at least I have on my feed, talk about, what? And this was maybe just a last night thing, I don't know, but I saw a handful of tweets about this, and Jim Williams, I think, was one of those that was retweeting it or something. But, what would be a really good idea is if the ACC and the Pac-12 got together in a scheduling alliance, or if the Big 12, now we're back to alliance talk, because I think that's just sort of the way the wind blows. But yeah, I mean, the ACC, I feel like address things head on, but also acknowledge that there's still some work to do.
Yeah.
When it comes to the happiness level of all of their schools.
Yeah, I I don't know if I ever really believed that I thought that's a good idea to have a scheduling alliance and make sure you have some nice games, and even though you might have a year or so where you have kind of a boring non-con schedule, at least it's not going to be 5 years for every school between fun non-conference opponents. You're going to have those things. But, yeah, I never really believed that was going to happen. Here's what else he said. Jim Phillips said the league's partnership with ESPN is very strong. ESPN and the ACC are completely motivated together to generate additional dollars. He said the league has met with multiple TV consultants and shouldn't feel bad about being third consistently, and believes they remain more than capable of competing for national championships. In football and basketball, you're talking about combined about 6 schools, but, that's fine. That's about what most people have. There's not, there's not like the Big 12 in basketball probably has 5 schools that could reasonably win a national championship coming into this year, if they got hot at the right time. But,
which is weird because are you including Texas in there?
Yeah. I mean, right now this year, and then that goes over the SEC in a year. But
right.
They probably have 1 in football right now that I could see, and even then that's a stretch in my mind.
In basketball, they've got some teams that can legit win it, and they've done that. Baylor and Kansas here most recently, Tech playing for 1 here recently. I mean, they were knocking on the door. Football, I mean, let's just exclude OU and Texas because, I mean, it's just a 1-year rental now at this point. But, I mean, TCU proved they can get there. They also proved there's a long way to go to be on the mountaintop. And there's probably, I would think in the new league, the champion, so to speak, or, K-State obviously was very good, but they weren't national championship level.
No.
So I think maybe a team, I don't know about every single year, but most years there will be a team, but they're not going to usually have 3 contenders, or anything along those lines.
And I would say the ACC in basketball has, Duke, North Carolina, and Louisville, and Louisville had the worst year in their, forever, but that's a school that's going to always put revenue and things behind, resources behind basketball as a basketball school. But Duke, UNC are always going to be in the conversation for national championships. In football, it's Clemson and FSU. we'll see about anybody else. Because
I think it stops there. Yeah, I don't think you can give Miami the rub still and just say like, yeah, they're competing just because they're Miami, because clearly they're not quite at that level anymore. So no, I mean, North Carolina on any given year may make some noise or someone along those lines. But yeah, I mean, Clemson, you feel pretty like Clemson they're suddenly like a sleeper pick again, sort of. I mean, they're not being talked about, I feel like, very much at all.
Which I don't like. I think people need to talk about Clemson and Garrett Riley and Will Shipley and all these things they have really good going for them. Yeah.
I'm sure it's different on the East Coast or something, but I just feel like I don't read a lot about Clemson.
FSU's the hot team in the ACC now. Like they're transfer portal and Jordan Travis and 10 wins last year and crawling up from the ooze kind of a thing.
That's understandable.
We'll wait and see. And here's another thing that he had to discuss was that he was the athletic director at Northwestern before he was the president of the ACC, and he said, "This is a very difficult time for the Northwestern community, and my heart goes out to any person who carries the burden of mistreatment or has been harmed in any way. During my 30-year career in college athletics, my highest priority has always been the health and safety of all student athletes. As you know, with this matter of litigation, I'm unable to share anything more at this time," and that he would vigorously defend himself. That's... he's going to be in that for a while. I mean, that's how it's just going to be. His name's going to come up. And we don't know. I mean, the supposition by, the investigation was that nobody really knew anything and that they should have known something, which is why it's a problem. So we'll see what happens down the line when these lawsuits and things all come about Jim Phillips and what his part or not part in any of that may or may not be.
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty lengthy time up at the podium, and that's how he chose to wind it on down. And I think he, had a respectful message. He didn't dwell on it, but he made sure what his position was clear, and that's where his focus has always been. Has been for, I think, almost in his exact words, the health and safety of student athletes, that being the utmost priority. So, I think it was probably a good idea to just, put something out there and make his case clear. But, yeah, I mean, anybody attached over the last few years, I feel like, prepare yourselves to get brought up probably in some form or fashion if you're related heavily into the athletics department, because it does feel as though that story is just gaining steam and not, dying down by any means. And so there's going to be a lot of names mentioned and a lot of things mentioned. And I don't know what the end result is for Northwestern other than just them having a bunch of lawsuits and having seen, not a totally similar situation by any means, but a loosely similar situation as far as just, something brewing under the surface that clearly came as a shock in some form or fashion the majority of supporters and even administrators. It's an ugly thing to have to deal with. You go into the guts of the whole system and start from scratch in some ways and tear some things up, and you got to do a lot of work to heal and to gain trust and all those types of things. So my heart definitely goes out to everybody involved there. Obviously that was on the side of good or just not knowing. And I know there are some people that you should have known. It's your job to know, like Pat Fitzgerald or whatever. But there are going to be people that are probably fingers pointed at them that really, I mean, like, how are they supposed to know? So you can't just run over everybody with a bus that's just loosely attached to Northwestern. But I don't blame him for wanting to speak out there at the end. And, it'll all come out in the wash, I'm sure. But however long that takes, I don't know. And so I really hate it. I've said this every time. I hate it, obviously, most for those directly affected. But, from a stupid sports standpoint, or just from knowing how most college fans are of, yes, you have the stereotype of the win at all cost, and there are definitely those elements of people that exist. But there are also, I think, the majority, when you take the rah-rah out of it, majority of people just love their university and the community that it brings and the family that it means to them. And to see your family hurting like this and really having a deep wound opened up, it's a tough thing, man. And then you're going to have football right around the corner, which is supposed to be the time that everybody waits on to celebrate and have all this spirit. And it's just going to be different for Northwestern this year, regardless of how little they won last year or whatever. It's going to be a tough season and a long season, I would imagine, to get through for them. So, that continues on.
All right, so James Crepea coming up next.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Notre Dame. Did you see his comments on Notre Dame?
I did not.
Okay, yeah. He talked about Notre Dame as well. And obviously there's a ton of conversation around Notre Dame, as there always is, and whether or not they will ever join a conference. And Jim Phillips was asked about that, and he said that they've had a lot of conversations with Notre Dame, and he basically let it be known that right now they're more independent-minded, and that they don't appear to be a team that's like looking to join up with a conference, but he's let them know, and they know full well that they've got a spot in the ACC basically anytime they want it. And I would imagine that most conferences would probably have a similar reaction to that as well. So yeah, I mean he touched on the Notre Dame topic and said that they're all ears if something were to ever pop off, and they would be interested in linking up and becoming a full-fledged member. But he said I mentioned they had a lot of conversations. They value their independence. I think they feel strongly that it will continue well into the future. Speaking of Notre Dame's Indy status, if they ever desire, they know we would welcome them with open arms. But I think I can't speak for Jack Swarbrick right now and Pete Bebequa in the future, or Father John Jenkins, but I think it's been a healthy relationship both ways for the ACC and Notre Dame. Their sports other than football, I think, have thrived in the ACC. They enjoy the academic prowess the ACC brings, but they've been pretty clear about their desire to stay independent, so I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, like Pete Bebequa is an executive with the company that they have their TV deal with. So he knows where all the bodies are buried, so to speak, when it comes to the finances that NBC has. So I fully expect that deal to get extended because he'll know exactly how to negotiate. I mean, they're starting on third with those negotiations when you hire that guy, essentially, being Notre Dame. And yeah, Notre Dame could have a soft spot in any conference where they could be like, listen, every time the representative from Wake Forest says something I don't like, I would like you to send somebody over that hit him with the stick. And they'd be like, well, I'm sorry, Wake Forest, but
that's all it takes.
You're going to get hit with a stick. I mean, that's what they want. We want them in here because that would be, and Notre Dame's the thing that the ACC, if Notre Dame came in football, they could just, whistle all their worries away. As far as revenue and all that, that would be the magic bullet for them, really.
For all of college sports,
yeah.
I think, in some ways, and just that it would paint a very clear picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame's kind of like that one outlier that kind of just marches to the beat of its own drum and has its own little pull of power, being free of any other affiliations outside of obviously the looser ACC affiliation as opposed to being a full member. So I know that's been talked about quite a bit, like when you bring up the Big Ten and what could be the next phases. And, inevitably you hear about Oregon and Washington, or you hear, no, they're done. They're going to focus on poaching the ACC schools, or, whatever idea you come up with. Notre Dame gets brought up. And that, I think, is at the top of the list more so than any of those other things. If you talk about a move that you could pull off, that would be one that, I'm sure the Big Ten or any other conference would love to pull off. But, the ACC obviously has worked hard to try to have the inside track there. And yet I think it was good to see Jim Phillips, because we were answering questions about Notre Dame like a few months ago about what do you think about would they ever join and blah, blah, blah. And I've always felt like I don't know that you give up independence unless you absolutely have to from their position.
Unless their media deal goes away.
Right. Which is why we last talked about it, was when there was the reports about what they wanted to have, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, there's no way they'll get paid $70 million by TV partners.
Yeah, but look, if they got 60, which I think that they can, because they're Notre Dame and they're a solid number, then and you don't have to share it with anybody, you're just getting that $60 million for those games, then I like the independence is what they like. So they don't have to jump through the hoops that everybody else does. They can make their own schedule. People they call people up and say, do you want to play? And nobody says no. Like they're like, absolutely, sure. Even if they're worried about if Notre Dame's great and they're worried about getting their butt kicked by Notre Dame. Also, they haven't really been a player in the national championship all that much other than, a couple times over the last 30 years. So they're good, but not great most of the time. They still bring in a bunch of eyeballs. They're their own thing. And until the economics of the situation paint them into a corner, and it would be a corner. If it's nothing they can get out of, then they'll do it. But I don't see that happening for at least another decade and a half or so.
Yeah.
If at all.
I think we're entering an interesting phase here where you've got the Big 12 on their new deal, the Pac-12 with whatever happens there. I feel like they're going to get a TV deal and they're going to stick together. The ACC is obviously under lock and key. The SEC and Big Ten are A-OK as far as their place in the game, and they're only rising if anything else and separating more depending on what angle you're looking from. So, yeah, I mean, I think these next few years could be very intriguing. And then what follows that, which, look, that's like 10 years away. So I don't, we're not going to dwell too much on that. That's just so far out and so many things could change between now and then. But I do think that part of the next few chapters, however many chapters you think take place between now and then, that will be very interesting. But as far as like what big domino could drop anytime in the foreseeable future that would be earth-shattering and everybody across the country would feel it on the Richter scale, it would be Notre Dame joining the conference. And at least as far as the ACC goes, I mean, it's been made very clear now as of today that that's not going to be a move you'll see anytime soon.
No, and I believe that the ACC gets the right of first refusal, like in that they get to make the first offer. Notre Dame doesn't have to join them by any stretch of the imagination, but they're going to be, or they get to try to match any offer. So if Notre Dame, gets an offer from the Big Ten and the ACC can match it or whatever. I don't know how.
Why would you not want to go join a 14, 15-team conference with the expanded playoff? I mean, like Notre Dame's got just give them the five, just call it the Notre Dame spot, basically, because that's probably what it's going to turn into in most years. But,
exactly. Like if Notre Dame's in the top 12, there's no way they're getting passed over.
Yep.
There's no way. If they have to, you've set a standard where they have to finish 12th, as where if, say, West Virginia finishes 12th, if Notre Dame finishes 14th, they still might jump West Virginia.
They might.
I mean, that's just how it is. But if they finish at least 12th, you've lowered the bar for Notre Dame to get in the postseason. So, yeah, it's not that. We later in the show, Craig, I don't know if I sent you this article from Front Office Sports today, but it was in response to an article in the Daily Mail where Apple Senior VP of Services Eddie Q pushed back on the idea of buying Premier League rights that would be limited to specific countries or regions. And in this article, he says, look, Apple's a global company. We want big things. So that's why we went all in on the MLS. That's why we tried to go all in on Sunday, kind of. They didn't get into the weeds of the NFL Sunday ticket, but that's why we were interested in the Sunday ticket, because it was going to be a big thing. So if they're going to get the English Premier League, then they're going to buy the whole thing, not just part of it, which...
There's an exception with baseball.
Yes.
They do have Friday Night Baseball. That's not, that's all it really is. So there is that exception. But yeah,
but for stuff that's open.
And is theirs,
That's wide open. Like the MLS was a wide open negotiation.
Okay, yeah.
The NFL Sunday ticket was a wide open negotiation.
Gotcha.
The NBA is about to be a wide open negotiation because their contract is up, or coming up. So when they're buying big things, they want to buy big. So that can either be good or bad news for the Pac-12. We have the author of that column, David Rumsey. He's coming on the show at 4 o'clock. So after you hear a very lengthy interview with James Crepea, we're going to dive into that a little bit. So some pretty interesting stuff when you think about it, because it's kind of unclear what it means for the Pac-12. But what it does mean is that if Apple is in on the Pac-12, if they're buying the Pac-12, they're buying the Pac-12. They're not like the quote here, Craig, which is the one that sticks out. This isn't, hey, I've got an opening from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. tonight, and I'm going to put this game on. That's not the way we're doing it. We're all in on this form of an investment point of view, so it doesn't work unless it's something significant. And he did mention that they are a global company, so they're looking for big things. So those are two kind of different. You can see it how you want, because the Pac-12 certainly doesn't have global reach, nor does college football. It has national reach in this country. So it could be a good investment here. But if they're talking global, then that means the NFL, the NBA, things like that have global reach to it. The English Premier League, things like that. What they're hoping the MLS does as well. Let's take a break right now. We'll come back. James Crepea joins us next from the Oregonian. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. How crazy is this? 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport totals values of $4,000 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. How crazy is that? Or the 2023 Jeep Compass, get 10% below MSRP. That's right, these deals are hot, just like our summer days in Texas. Remember, first responders get another $500 in savings. So come find the Jeep that's right for you and save big at Alan Samuels in Waco. Make this the summer sales event at Allen Samuels during the hot days of summer. And this month in July, get legendary 2023 Dodge Chargers or Challengers, SXT, GT, or RT models. Your choice with total values up to $2,000. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place for you to shop for your next Dodge. Shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and find the hot rod for you. Come by and visit the showroom at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. See the demons and scat packs they have loaded the sales floor with. They won't last long, as you truly have the last call models of legendary muscle cars only at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
James Crepia, the Oregonian, joins us now here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. And James, you've been in this business a long time. You've been to a lot of press conferences. I'm just guessing that the most interaction you've gotten from the general populace was after you asked that last question to George Kliavkov on Friday.
It was certainly up there, for sure. And to be honest, especially in the moment, I'm not thinking of any of that at all. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing my job for that. I certainly wasn't expecting it. In the moment, I'm like other media in the room. I'd asked one question I had for George about certain possible things for expansion or whatever it was earlier on. And I'm just listening to what he, is saying to somebody else. And I believe I turned to Ross Ellinger, formerly Sports Illustrated, now with Gallo, who was across the table from me there. And I think I really said, like, what did you just say? And quickly just shot my hand back up like, what? And okay, yeah, had a follow-up naturally that I think most people in the room had by way of a follow-up, and most people watching from afar. So I appreciate the people's whatever praise that got thrown my way, which I was not doing it for those reasons at all. I'm just doing my job. But if that means that people appreciate reporters doing their jobs, I'll take the win on behalf of the greater reporting industry on the day. But again, that was not my motivation at all. And like you guys referenced in some of these press conferences, particularly at media days where some of these are televised and stuff. And I know like even coaches' press conferences now are on YouTube and everything, as you guys' show is for that matter. Some of these become performative, not just on institutional side or whoever's holding the press conference, but some of it becomes performative for the press. And I've never been that way. I'm not that way. That's not what I was doing it for. Like I say, like I'm just doing my job in that moment. And okay, it ended up getting the reaction it did, but like I say, I'm not in it for that. And I'm just asking a natural follow-up that I hope that if it weren't me, that whoever else it was who would have gotten the last question that day, that they would have asked the same thing, because all I was doing was listening. And the commissioner said something of interest that certainly had some implications that I think everyone in the room and many watching at home wanted clarification on.
No, absolutely. I think everybody's thankful that you asked for some clarification, because we were all a bit puzzled about what exactly was trying to be said there. So, James, having heard what you heard, what was your feel for what Kliavkoff was trying to get across message-wise? Are you more confident in the state of a television deal and that being on the horizon? Kind of just where are you after hearing the commissioner talk for the first time in quite a long time?
Well, putting the one remark and the back and forth there at the end aside, compare it to 9 months ago, 6 months ago, certainly. I think there is more reason today for optimism for the Pac-12, for not just getting a deal, but getting probably at least a comparable or competitive one. And when I say comparable or competitive, I mean relative to the Big 12 or the ACC. Obviously, we're not talking about relative to the SEC or the Big 10. I genuinely think that that's the case compared to certainly 9 months ago or 6 months ago, for myriad reasons. Some of which that the commissioner and ADs who spoke on Friday at Pac-12 Media Day laid out, and some that's just a matter of common sense. And look, they alluded to it, they mentioned it, and again, they're right. I mean, call what it is. We're all aware of it. It's in the public sphere. A lot of the prospective media partners who the league, any league who's been talking to it for the last year or in the year ahead, it's been a tough time. It's been a rough go out there. There's been cost cutting. There's been layoffs. Naturally, in the state of linear television, you're still dealing with cord cutting and cutbacks in that realm by way of subscribers. So there's all kinds of areas where economically it's been a rough year for people who you would be negotiating with for such a deal. But do I think it's a little bit of a better lay of the land today than it was certainly 9 months ago or even 6 months ago? Yeah. And I don't think anyone from the Pac-12 needed to be the one to tell you that, but just because they said it doesn't mean it's true. I think it's just, that's kind of the lay of the land and landscape. But combined with it, yes, put anything that anyone says aside, this league's grant of rights and current existing media deal expires in just over 1 year, probably about 375 days, give or take, August 2nd of 24. So forget about what they say, just what's on contract and, what's set. And as of today, nothing beyond until next year. Having said that, is there cause for more optimism today than before? Yes, not just because of the landscape, but because, frankly, everyone's aware of that timeline. And I'm not guaranteeing that, the 10 schools all stay together, even though that is the current stance. Though, boy, if that were the case for Colorado, you sure do wish that other than Phil DeStefano's remarks to Sean Keeler of the Denver Post last week, that there would have been a little bit more of a strong stance in that regard and posture on Friday, particularly from Rick George, who very, very quickly got away from reporters after lunch and then took off. You would like to hear that from them in particular. But even if it is the case, even if somebody does move on or whatever, frankly, they could have done it already. They haven't yet. Will they? I don't know if they will or they won't, whether it be Colorado or anybody else. But they have stuck by the company line for the last year is that everyone is committed to stay together. And contrary to many folks who seem to be very interested in the Big 12, there hasn't been any defections yet. I'm not saying that there won't be. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm as skeptical as the next. But it hasn't happened yet, and it hasn't been for lack of opportunity. So we will see. But there is going to be an end game here, and it's not just, it's just over 12 months out. No, there's an end game by way of a timeline that people do have. That each institution, can only speak to its own perspective in terms of when they have to know something. But, I realize it's been the perpetually moving goalpost, guys. I'm like, well, it's 2 or 3 weeks away. We've heard that for 6-7 months. I don't think that, let's put it this way, this group of 10, as it presently stands, I don't believe all 10 will be able to or willing to stand together if we get past Labor Day and week 1 of the season and this is not done. I think we have really gone past every line of demarcation at that point. So I don't know if it'll come this week. I don't know if it'll come the week after. I don't know if it'll come in a month. But I do think a media deal is coming for the Pac-12 conference, whether it be a 10-team league and then expand, or who knows, or whatever Colorado may or may not do. But to your point, to your question, what is my read of the situation, and is there a feeling of confidence in the league, not just because they're naturally going to say that at a media day, but because there's real reason to believe so? Yeah, I do. And again, 6-8 months ago, I think we've talked about it. At the time, I thought it was a far more tenuous situation, go back to December or January, certainly than today.
James, I brought this up on Friday. I'm not so sure that they shouldn't have had a meeting with all of the 10 presidents and George Kliavkoff and said, hey, here's the messaging. We don't know when the TV deal is going to be done. It's fine. We're all good. We'll let you know when it's done. And, we're not going to be able to offer progress updates because things are fluid and crazy right now. Just look at the landscape. But we're confident we'll get something done. And then just repeat that boringly for 12 months until you do get the deal done. Because it seems to me it's lost on George Kliavkoff why people are asking that it keeps getting done. It's because your presidents have said it's been a couple weeks for about 8 months now.
To be clear, the presidents have not been the ones saying it's going to be a couple weeks. They have not.
Okay.
To be clear. Some ADs have alluded, or there's been random sources that have alluded. But to be clear, if you want to quote the presidents, or various presidents, a few presidents who have spoken over the last year, and I do mean few. For instance, University of Oregon's president, or interim presidents, as it were, for the last year, neither one of them spoke on any of this. And the new president's been in the job for 21, 22 days. So he hasn't said anything. I wouldn't go to Stanford's president right now. I think he has some other issues going on. I wouldn't go to Cal's president for really much of anything, but I believe she's announced her retirement. So the few who have spoken are Washington State's president, both in a board meeting and elsewhere. DeStefano recently at Colorado, and Robert Robbins of Arizona was one who did. And he, if you go back to his comments from, I believe, a couple of months ago now, he is one who has publicly stated that not only is everything going to be fine, and that time is of no concern to him, he would actually be supportive of waiting even more. Just wait all the way until the 11th hour, if you go by Robert Robbins. So there is not angst being projected from the presidents and chancellors in the Pac-12. There is an impatience being projected by them, again, publicly. I don't know about privately, but publicly. The remarks from the few that there have been have been very much the opposite of 2 or 3 weeks. If anything, if you ask or go by the comments that have been made, it's been, we can keep on waiting. Waiting is not a problem. So, maybe at least to the couple who have spoken. So to be fair, the presidents, I don't think ultimately George works for them. And the few that have spoken publicly have intimated that they have little to no concern about waiting. And one has gone so far as to say he'd love to keep on waiting. Now, I don't think his peers necessarily all agree with that sentiment, but that's where they stand. So I don't think it's lost on George, to be fair, as to why people are asking. I think that we can disagree about how they've gone about the strategy of the last year, and that they have kind of allowed some of their narrative to be controlled by others, right, wrong, or otherwise. And that's part of it. This has not been a league, though, no matter who the commissioner is, who has really been the aggressor in messaging in that way, even historically speaking. So be that all as it may, they are where they are, but they are still together. Again, for now, how much longer that this angst to some degree, at least regarding Colorado, that's why I say to some degree, continues, we'll see. But as has been said especially the last week, rubber's got to meet the road here. It's not lost on those. It's like I even spoke to someone last week, and the story I had ahead of Media Day saying that they weren't going to be announcing a deal on Friday, but that sort of saying it's got to get done. Like this isn't lost here. People are fully recognized. Like no matter what may have been said by Robert Robbins previously, like, well, no, it's okay. We can keep waiting. Things have got to improve a little bit. Okay. That's one president's perspective, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but not everybody can feel like waiting for forever, and it's got to get done. And by the way, for everybody who's been as heavily interested in this, for whatever their level of vested perspective is, boy, I sure do hope a year from now that the level of fervor that the Pac-12's negotiations has generated over the last year, I can only hope for the Mountain West purposes that it generates the same level of interest. Because they're going to be going through the same thing. So I can only hope the level of interest from all parties and speculation as to who could be peeled away or joining a different conference or poached elsewhere or corner schools or all those sorts of things. Boy, I just hope the same level of fervor is generated by the Mountain West, if for nothing more than the Mountain West reasons. But yes, it has been an interesting time, but I don't think it's lost on many people within the league as to naturally why it's come up. Look, even in his own remarks, last thing I'll say on this is, he said, look, he wanted Friday to be about football, but he totally acknowledged, like, have a feeling there's going to be some questions about other things. So before I bring up Merton Hanks and Mark Harlan to come up here and talk about football, let's talk about the other things. And that's fair. He gave time, and naturally it ended with the follow-up that we talked about before. So that was there. If you wanted to bury your head in the sand and say we're not going to acknowledge it or only going to address it once and not going to even take questions on it, they could have done that. It wouldn't have gone over well, but they could have done that. They didn't do that. So, to be fair, both ways. Should there be a level of skepticism because the deal isn't done yet? Yes. Should there be a level of optimism for those within the league and fans for those teams that are still in the league about what the future looks like? I think that's a yes, too.
James, I think that San Diego State's doing their best to make the Mountain West as interesting as possible with their realignment possibilities. But speaking of them and kind of tying Oregon all into this, there is a lot of just rumor and just BS and whatever out there on any number of topics, but realignment included on social media. And so you see all of these things flying. I'm sure we brought it up with you before about the Big Ten, and this all is Oregon and Washington are the linchpin of this entire thing. And there's this big debate about the interest level and how that's all holding the pack together or not holding the pack together. Can you provide any sort of clarity on the opinion of an Oregon in regards to their status, their future, what they're looking at, and how that then therefore affects the Pac-12 conference? Well,
just as we're talking about how George Kleopatra hasn't said very much over the last year, since not just since the last media day. I believe the only public remarks he had, brief as they were, between media day to media day, was at the Sports Business Journal's Intercollegiate Athletics Forum last December, which I was also at, and he spoke very briefly about things then. Well, in that same span of time, Oregon's athletic director, Rob Mullins, spoke at Pac-12 Media Day 2022. He spoke to several of us Friday. And in between, the Oregon Ducks chief reporter for the Oregonian over the last year, I spoke to Rob once at spring meetings in Scottsdale the first week in May. That was it. And it wasn't for lack of seeing him around at various different events. So by way of what is my read of where they are, or what they've said, or what have you, again, the last year they were hiring a president, which they now have in place, but you weren't getting anything out of the interim presidents along the way. They are the ones ultimately at the table. Well, now it's the new president. Again, he's been on the job for 3 weeks. I don't hold it against him that I'm not his first phone call, to say the least. So I don't know where they stand from that perspective, from that seat, from that office. And from the athletic director's chair, I've only heard from Rob, albeit briefly, other than from Media Day. And what he expressed on Media Day was really the same as what he expressed to me nearly 2 months earlier, which is that they're a proud member of the conference. They believe in the conference. They see the value in being in the conference, the rivalries, the time, the recruiting footprint, the alumni footprint, etc. Now, again, the skeptic could say, well, all things could be true, but you could be just as happy to join the Big Ten. Well, I don't dismiss that in the least. Hey, look, if somebody's going to offer you a whole lot more money in a business transaction, you'd be awfully foolish not to take it. But the Big Ten hasn't come offering with
Right.
such an opportunity. And I realize that in the logistics and semantics, it would be, well, Oregon has to ask. Oregon or Washington would have to ask, not the other way around due to tortious interference and those sorts of things. Sure. But they're not going to ask unless they know the answer. Well, let's call it what it is. Oregon and Washington. Phil Knight was quoted by The Athletic back in November as saying it, and I think it's been everybody's read of the situation, and he put words to it 8 months ago now, which is they're kind of out there in the in-between, meaning that they're going to be one of the tentpoles of the Pac-12 if it's still standing, and probably on an equal revenue distribution model of the main part of the revenue, forgetting about postseason, unequal, and merit-based and those things, performance-based. But on an equal distribution model of whatever portion of revenue that's equally shared, they're probably going to get below their market value. And that would apply for Oregon and Washington. And for that matter, whatever performance-based, well, they probably feel like they probably do pretty well on the performance-based side. Okay. But if they were to go to the Big Ten, which also has equal revenue distribution, but at a far higher clip, well, in order to grow that pie enough and to generate more for everybody else, as well as your own share, Oregon and Washington are in tough binds in that regard, because while they have certainly had competitive success over their histories, over their most recent generation, no, they don't generate $80, $90, $100 million worth of revenue self-standing, let alone to increase the pie for the Illinois and Purdue's and Rutgers and Maryland's of the world to make it worthwhile for them to expand beyond 16 teams. Now, again, whether we get there or not in the 2030s or 2040s, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know it all. I don't know if we'll be in an employment model by then. I don't know. But one of the many things that if it could have happened, if it would have happened, I think it would have happened already. And Kevin Warren was pretty keen on looking at such a thing. That's why I say 6 months ago, things may have been a little different. But whether it was because of that issue, whether it was because of wherever Big Ten's president stood on that issue, and whether it became because of television partners, what they were willing to pay for or not, or deals that were completely finalized with the Big Ten at that time or not. Obviously, Kevin Warren is now with the Chicago Bears. And we haven't heard much by way of the Big Ten's new commissioner regarding expansion, because he's also only been on the job for a very brief amount of time. We've got Big Ten Media Day this week to see what he may say on all that. So I think for now, not just because, Rob Mullins has said it and that's all we've heard, but frankly, because of a little bit of a lack of other options in the near term. And I say at least in the near term, because depending on the term, the length of term of whatever the forthcoming Pac-12 deal is, part of the idea of a shorter term isn't just to hit the market again. Part of the idea of being on a shorter term length of term, number of years, is to make it harder to lose schools. Because if the Pac-12's deal, however long it is, whatever they come up with, if it's a year or 2 years shorter than the Big 12, the ACCs, whoever, where is anybody going to go at that point? If their deal is up and they're going to hit the market again, but the other conference who they should go to or maybe have an invite for later, yeah, but if there's a 2 year gap in there, what are you going to do for 2 years? Go independent? Where are you going? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. So part of the idea of the league looking for a shorter term strategically is not just security, stability, and whatever they can get financially now. It's also to play the long game of trying to better prevent being poached in the future.
So, James, the commissioner said that, whether or not he had a deal to announce or not, they were going to do it at media days because they wanted to keep the focus, which obviously I think backfired because everybody just talked about what he had to say anyways. But were you able to shift the focus to football? And if so, what were your main takeaways from a conference that's clearly got a loaded, number of quarterbacks that could be stars this season and some pretty good teams as well? What was the football side takeaway from Pac-12 media days if you had one?
Well, and it's a little bit of a logistical challenge for those on the ground because, when you're covering one team and trying to mill about with everybody else, administrators and whatnot. So I didn't necessarily need media day to be the thing to help me better capture that. But bottom line is that this league has the best quarterbacks in the country this year of all the leagues. It just does. Top to bottom, and especially at the top, it does. It has the best quarterback as the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I forget about the fact that SC's leaving in a year. Caleb Williams is here. It's pretty good. They've got him. And then behind him, they have a bevy of quarterbacks who, again, forget about what the draft nicks say about what's going to happen 8-9 months from now. Who knows? Maybe they'll pan out and be first-round picks. Maybe they'll be fourth-round picks. I don't know. But I know they're awfully good college quarterbacks who won a lot of football games, but really good statistics, and led 8 wins, 9 wins, 10-win seasons for their respective schools. No other league has the depth of quarterback in particular. That's the upside. Frankly, if the Big 12 or the ACC had, or frankly, even the Big 10, which has not exactly been a quarterback prolific league, as a top to bottom in the league. If any other league had the depth of talent at quarterback that the Pac-12 has entering this season, the hype train would be very, very different, I think, for that league. Because of the other issues facing this league, I think some of it does get overlooked. I think that's part of why they wanted Friday to be as much about football as possible, because this league has a lot to sell in that regard. With a Caleb Williams, with a Bo Nix, with a Michael Penix, with Cam Rising, with Shedeur Sanders, with unbelievably highly touted freshmen who may or may not win jobs at Arizona State and UCLA, with a former 5-star who, obviously did not have the kind of career he was hoping to have at Clemson. But DJ Uyunglele is so far and away on paper, the most highly touted quarterback to come to Oregon State in a long, long time. Now, whether or not he wins the job, that's still to be determined. But again, all kinds of reasons why this league should feel really good. Those are the reasons. And the bottom line is that when possibly one of the worst, and by worst, I put that in quotes, when one of the lower or lower performing quarterbacks in the league entering the season could be either a 5-star freshman or Cam Ward at Washington State, and that's the bottom. The league's doing pretty good at that position. That's the high upside. That's the stuff that the league is naturally selling it on by way of football. And you know what? Again, to their credit, they've got it. Look, again, guys, you're in that part of the country. At the Big 12 this year, in the last year with Texas and Oklahoma, if they had the depth of talent at the quarterback position that the Pac-12 did this year, the hype train would be very different. It would, even with schools who are leaving. Again, all right, we acknowledge that both leagues are losing, two major teams, but they're really deep at the quarterback position. Now, that's not to ignore certain areas where the league is weak, particularly on defense as a whole. so the caliber of quarterback play may also be higher than it might otherwise be in a defensively more competitive league, because for as good as this league is a quarterback, and it is really weak on the defensive side of the football in collective unit performance. And some of that is because it has really good quarterbacks, and some of that is because it just does not have the depth of talent on the defensive side. Certainly not that forget about the SEC, even that the Big Ten has it, it just doesn't.
James Krepke of the Oregonian. James, thank you so much. Great work last week, as always, at Pac-12 Media Days, and thanks for taking the time for us today.
Appreciate it, guys. You have a good one.
This is 365 Sports.
Cars price right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, that's TexasBeefHouse.com, and joined by Marketing Director Samantha Duvall. Samantha, thanks for your time. There have been numerous holidays, and now it's just straight up the summertime. Your thoughts about some of the specials and ideas you have?
So we still have our hamburger special going on. We're going to continue it through the end of July. When you bundle our 25-pound ground beef bundle, you can get hamburger for as low as $6 a pound. And the same with our 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patties. You can also get those for as low as $6 a pound. All of those come with free shipping in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We've got a lot of steaks online. People are buying up our brisket. Time to smoke a brisket. Good time to grill out. If you order and use our code SICK'EM10, you can get 10% off your order of $100 or more. And it's all grown right here in White House. We're a family-owned company. It's all pasture raised. We just enjoy what we get to do.
Family reunion, people going out to the lakes, or people just meeting or going out of town. Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements, with the members excited about what they see. New flooring, locker rooms have been redone, new painting, and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, with a new squat machine that will test your legs and their stamina. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, treadmills, elliptical machines on a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and welcome Nathan Roach. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro, the great Britt Cole, plus adult tennis lessons with Blake and Kenna, who are ready to take your game to another level. And the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive next to Hawaiian Falls in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at sick'em365.com.
Welcome back into 365 Sports from Front Office Sports. David Rumsey joins us now. And David, caught your article today on the Apple's ambitions when it comes to live sports rights. And we've talked about it probably every day for quite a long time about the Pac-12 and what they're doing. When you read these comments from Eddie Q, what did you come away thinking about their overall goal when it comes to live sports and when it comes to particularly college sports and an entity like the Pac-12?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I think they're interested, Apple, in professional sports, in collegiate sports, any live rights that they can get their hands on. But the caveat is, in my mind, that they don't want just some small package. They don't want to have Amazon's Thursday Night Football. They want to have everything, right? So the article I wrote was about Premier League rights and how the Premier League was wanting to sell a package of games to Apple, and they're not really interested. They have all the rights worldwide to MLS soccer games, right? So I think if you're looking at other properties that they might be interested in, I think they want maximum reach. So it's going to be interesting to see if a conference like the Pac-12 would be willing to hand over basically the entire ship to a streamer like Apple.
One of the direct quotes there was, "This isn't, hey, I've got an opening from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. tonight. I'm going to put this game on." There's obviously been a lot of talk about that late night window, and perhaps, part of the package could be Apple swooping and getting that. But based on what you just said, I guess that would have to entail them buying the whole package, maybe running that game, and then subleasing, other games out to other entities probably, but still maintaining the full control would be ideal for them.
Yeah, and I don't know if they would be interested in, leasing out those games to an ESPN or Fox, who I think everybody knows loves having those late night, Saturday night Pac-12 matchups to fill those TV windows for college football sickos around the country that want to watch football from 11 a.m. to, 1 a.m. basically. So it's going to be interesting to see because, if you're kind of trading off some things with Apple, right? They might pay you the most money, more money than Fox or ESPN are going to pay you. But less people are going to watch your games because, frankly, not as many people have Apple TV Plus or a subscription to that, which is probably what's going to be required to watch Pac-12 games if it goes to Apple. So it's a trade-off, right? More money on the front, but then less exposure. So, how does that play out long-term? And that's what the conference has to decide.
David, how do you think long-term that their goals are? Like there is some struggle right now when it comes to the Major League Baseball rights and all that. Do you think that they'll get in on that? They tried to get all the NFL. They've got one day of baseball right now. And how does that reflect on what they maybe do with college sports?
Yeah, I think the baseball, the MLB deals are an interesting test, right? There wasn't necessarily a huge amount of MLB rights available when they came in for that. And I think they just kind of wanted to get their feet wet, see what it was like to broadcast games. And some people like them, some people don't. It's kind of been a mixed bag of results. From my understanding, they were really into getting that NFL Sunday ticket package, but it didn't work out because they wanted to have it come to Apple TV Plus, and they didn't really want to charge much more for it, right? How before it was on DirecTV, and you had to pay so much money to get DirecTV and an extra fee to get NFL Sunday ticket. That's kind of the way it is on YouTube TV now. But they want to just give it out to subscribers, to drive subscriptions for Apple TV. And the NFL said, no way. We want this to be a premium product. And that's kind of getting into the weeds about protecting their other big media partners and ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC. So Apple has a really unique strategy. And I think they're still really early in figuring out how they want to attack live sports.
David, when you hear about the ESPN cuts, those are brought up quite a bit as a sign that the industry's in some sort of trouble. But then you have Apple who's going, hey, we got an open wallet and no end in sight as far as that goes. Just what do you kind of make of the ecosystem right now in the media landscape? Is it one where you feel like people are pinching, or is it like in the case of Apple where it's just going a different direction than maybe it has in years past?
I think everybody from traditional media companies, sports networks, streamers are really clinging to live sports because that is one of the remaining products that will get people to sit down in front of a screen and watch something given time. And then there's breaks and you can sell ads, and that's the best way for these media companies to make money, frankly. So I look at Apple, and like I said, they're figuring out their live sports strategy, but they certainly have a lot more money to spend than maybe a Disney or who owns ESPN. But I think they've proven they're not going to be frivolous with it, right? They're not just going to buy up everything because they can. They want to be, diligent and do their deals, but they're coming, and they can be aggressive for a lot of these packages if they want to.
So do you think that his comments are overall good news for the Pac-12?
I really don't know, because if you're reading, the message boards, the rumor mills, I think there's some real trepidation from the Pac-12 presidents who are eventually going to be able to sign off on whatever these next media rights deals are. And, a lot of these guys come from a different time. They're older. They're worried about giving their rights over to a streamer. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's kind of scary to not have your games on network TV, or much less, cable TV even. You got to go find it on the smart TV or on your phone. So I think the Pac-12 desperately wants some cash from Apple, but if they had it their way, they would get a big sum of money for a portion of games and then still be able to work with their ESPN, with their Fox, and, have some maximum reach. And I just don't know if they're going to get that perfect world. And I think that's why it's been taking so long, right? We've been hearing forever, Pac-12 media deals coming, Pac-12 media deals coming. Well, now they're down to 10 teams and they don't have a media deal. So I think everybody knows it as much as we do now. There's really not much more to be said.
All right. You also had a little piece on the ACC and Jim Phillips talking about, the CW and adding games with that network, and also talking about just trying to, maintain a strong third behind the SEC and the Big Ten, obviously, when it comes to TV deals. What kind of stood out to you as far as his remarks on the state of the conference? Obviously, they've had their own little, public a very minor spat where there's clearly some schools that feel like they want a little bit more, and this is a very long-term contract that in hindsight is way too long. But what did you make of Jim Phillips' comments about the ACC and their current setup?
Yeah, I think he was being optimistic, which you're going to do as a conference commissioner, right? Especially when you're in such a spotlight of everybody knows, like you're saying, the ACC is so far behind the SEC and Big Ten. And I mean, the ACC's contract goes to 2036. The Big Ten's contract that's paying them over $1 billion a year runs out in 2030, and they're going to be able to sign a bigger deal then. So it's a mess for the ACC. I know they're trying to figure it out, but like he said today, you can't just get ESPN to instantly give you more money. He referenced the layoffs at ESPN and the things that they're going through, and how they have financial commitments to make too. So they're really in a pickle. And I think he's trying to be optimistic, but it doesn't look like a lot more revenue is going to be coming in, and that's why they're dispersing it in different ways, right? That's why in 2024, the teams that maybe make a college football playoff or perform better in a bowl game are going to get paid a little bit more than the teams that don't. So at least some of those schools at the top of the league can get a little bit more padding and maybe not have their sights set on going to a Big Ten or SEC if and when more realignment happens.
He did say one thing that I've been thinking about, and he said that their ESPN relationship is great, and that they and ESPN continue to find ways to make more revenue. But why would ESPN try to find a way to pay them more money if they don't have to?
And that's a great question, right? How is ESPN gonna pay them more money? Well, if there's more games, I guess, right, then they could pay them. If there was more schools coming in that would broaden the conference portfolio. I don't know who the ACC is going to be adding right now. I think they're more likely targets to get poached. So they're being creative, right? He says there's some things going on behind closed doors that they can't talk about right now. I don't know. Maybe they're going to roll out, a more special subset of games, whether that's college basketball games, or they're kind of limited in what they can do for football games. But I know ESPN wants to keep building out ESPN Plus, so maybe they'll agree to move even more games to streaming for ESPN for a higher fee. There's a lot of different ways that they could get into it, but like you said, ESPN's got to agree to this, because they could sit there and do nothing right now and just pay their $240 million a year for the rights to the ACC games.
David Rumsey, Front Office Sports. David, great stuff. Let's have you on again sometime soon. Absolutely, really interested. And we talk a lot of sports media here. It's become, we are now, I wouldn't say experts, but I think strong novices after all we've had to do the last
It's
year.
part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, it
right.
is.
Yep.
Absolutely. David Rumsey, Front Office Sports. Thanks for joining us, David. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we do. We've had to talk about it. Like, again, if we were an airplane mechanic, I couldn't fix the plane, but I could maybe tell you what it might be.
Yeah, I've seen this kind of debate raging on because I think there are people that are absolutely dead sick of realignment. There are people that are interested no matter how outlandish the rumor may be or how, totally unbelievable that it may be. It's like anything else. There's all different flavors, and various people like different kinds or all of them or whatever. And there's certainly some that don't care much about the media side of things. But it is, when you hear about the ESPN layoffs and TV deals and the impact that has to the point of like, could it possibly have an effect on realignment and a domino effect? Like we saw it absolutely had a domino effect with Oklahoma, Texas, USC, and UCLA. That's why it's interesting. And I also think it's interesting just because, like the whole way that we watch and absorb entertainment and look, I don't consider myself an entertainer in the slightest, but we were technically entertainment. That's interesting. Like, is YouTube taking over the world? Is it going to be, cable outlasting everybody? Is it all of a sudden we're watching all of these games that we talk about on Apple and the Pac-12 is actually on the cutting edge? And I know that the longer this goes on, the less likely that is. But until we see something, it's like anything else. You can speculate all you want about what it means. And so I do find some entertainment in a good portion of the speculation, as long as it's grounded in some reality, and that certainly it's not just Big 12 country. He's not a Big 12 fan to my knowledge. He's a guy writing for Front Office Sports who covers a lot of these stories, and there's interconnected pieces like we brought up, with the ACC and their situation. They got years and years remaining on that contract, but it's still something you're watching because you're like, well, is everybody going to be able to hold it together that long, and then if the Pac-12 is 6 months down the line and they still don't have a TV deal, I don't care how much of a homer you are. That's news, buddy. Like it's news that they didn't have one by media day when they had specific media saying that they would have it by media day. I don't care how you want to slice it after the fact. That was still news that they didn't have one. And it was a disappointment, I think, for a majority of the people involved, no matter how you can talk your way through why that is, whether it's industry cuts or whatever you want to attribute it to not have had a deal on media day was a letdown. For all involved, in my opinion, and certainly for those schools, even if they know something's coming. It would have been better in every way, shape, or form to have had something done by then. And look, you can't force things, but unfortunately for them, when you didn't control the message very well, or when you did, you even stumbled over yourself and your own talking points. That's just the reality of the situation now is when you've been teasing something for so long, people just aren't apt to believe you. Because it's, oh yeah, sure. Now's the time. So now it's like, show me your hand or I don't believe you have anything. And I'm calling your bluff. And, obviously there's not calling a bluff in this situation really, because you can't force the Pac to unveil anything, but at some point they are going to be forced to. And again, the question, like it's been on 100 other shows about this is, just when is that? Because we thought it was going to be last Friday at worst. And that came and went. Now, I did see our buddy Jason Shear. He put out a tweet about Colorado's called another board meeting, which, a lot of these have come and gone for various schools. A lot of them have amounted to, or all of them have amounted to basically absolutely nothing in that regard. But, we talked yesterday about the UConn rumor, and I don't believe that. I think that I could certainly be wrong in that, but I don't believe that UConn's like some high priority for the Big 12, nor do I believe that they should be anyways. Like, even if there is something to that, I don't believe it, and I don't think that they should be, right now at least. That Colorado thing, I think that's the last remnant of any sort of Pac-12 rumor mill deal is Colorado and what happens to them. I'm still of the opinion that they stick with where they are. But that's another one of those things that just the longer it drags out, you do wonder about getting cold feet and just where their mind's at. I would think their best bet is to stay. But if they get some inkling that there's, something that's not going to, occur the way they think it is, then, I suppose there's always a chance. But I just wanted to mention that because I'm sure there will be somebody in the chat room that brings that up or at some point, sees, oh, Colorado's got something. And I don't know, it could be nothing, could be something. But, they are the one part in this that if I had to bet my next paycheck, they're staying in the Pac-12, and I feel confident about that. But is there an outside chance that they could just get squirrely and go lone wolf? I suppose, yeah. There's always that chance, yeah.
Especially if the wrong I'll say the wrong, or the right money people change their mind on it.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so you're in this board meeting and some of the big boosters, the people on the board say, we've changed our mind on this. We're tired of waiting. That's what it's going to take. And those are big if the influential people at the top, that's where they are, then I think that's what changes. But if there's nothing to make them do that, like nothing real to make them do that right now, then there's nothing. Okay, we got a couple of super chats.
And the reason why I bring up even the Colorado piece is because I did see that from our buddy Jason, but also because Garrett had mentioned that John Wilner had a column or a piece on Colorado. And what was the basic gist of it? Because I haven't been able to read it in full.
It was about the takeaways from media days, comparing Colorado and their administration, how they handled it, to Utah. Both of them coming in, how Utah was right now more sold on we're sticking with the plan with the pack as is, and Colorado, was it Rick George, the AD, chunking the deuce, being like, yo, I got a plane to catch. And then obviously this comes out with the meeting, and it's just kind of like the flares of the situations for each program kind of going in different directions.
Yeah, they certainly handled it differently for sure. I think Colorado has been pretty pro-Pac, but I think if anybody's kind of left that door cracked open, it would be them, would be fair to say. So, yeah, I mean, I could see how you would have that sort of takeaway. So, I mean, you have all of those elements, and it's no wonder that hasn't been stamped out completely.
Well, yeah, and look, their football coach, if he has an opinion on it, like he's going to be very influential in that. So, if he tells them I'm tired of this, and that's
he's got to have a lot of influence though, Paul, to be able to make a decision. Like that's a university change. That's not just not a football game.
But that's also one of those things that, like, he's famous enough to where it wouldn't take much for people like, oh, Deion says it? And, like, before they stop and go, well, what if he leaves in 3 years? Like, before they get to part B of, well, yeah, okay, I'm glad he thinks that now, but, I mean, what does that mean for, like, if say Deion, you know, they move to the Big 12, they win it 2 times, Texas comes open, he takes that job.
Right.
You know.
Can you imagine Deion as head coach at Texas?
You know,
wow.
Like it's like, okay, well, you know, then glad we're here, I guess.
That is the pain for them. Is like you're on the ride, and while you're on there, it's going to be fun. But there is always that of like, how long does this ride last? Like, are we in this thing for like years, or are we in this for like a year, or what do we, that's the only, but hey, enjoy it right now, Colorado fan. Like, totally be absorbed in it and enjoy the fact that people are caring about your program again, and national media are talking about your program again, or wanting to highlight them on television in marquee spots and all that. I mean, I'm fascinated by what that's going to look like those first couple of games when you've got TCU and you've got, Matt Rule in Nebraska shortly thereafter. That's going to be amazing to watch unfold. But, yeah, they certainly missed having him there. He could have taken away a lot of the steam from media days had he just been up at the podium, and a lot of the focus would have shifted there rather than on what Kleofkoff had to say. But, yeah, I just passing that along because there's been a couple of different things now mentioned about Colorado, and just wanted to give our kind of 2 cents on that. So, as always, put as much focus on there as you want to. Could be nothing, could be something. We'll find out whenever it occurs.
All right, 2 super chats. Paul and Craig, I keep losing direct TV channels due to a company called Nexstar. This includes my Fox, CBS, WB, and other channels that are now with, I guess it would be CW, which it used to be the WB, that are now blacked out. Is Nexstar making a bid to be a player? Nexstar is a player. They own an absolute ton of local stations. So, Chris, I forget where, if you're in Missouri, they probably own several stations that are local stations in your market, are negotiating with DirecTV. They're a big company. They're already a big company, and they just bought the CW from Warner Brothers. So if you have a locally, what we call O&O in the business, owned and operated CW, like we do here, the one that we're on is locally run by KWTX. So we don't have to worry about it like blacking out. They essentially lease it from Nexstar. But Nexstar, if it's a CW that they own, then yeah, they're going to negotiate and have things blacked out and all that on DirecTV in certain spots. So yeah, they're not trying to be, they're trying to be a bigger player. I mean, obviously the deal they made with the ACC, the deal they made with Live Golf, they're sticking their toes in the water of things, but I would not call them a major player yet, but they're trying to see where that's at.
Yeah, they're not like a Disney, ESPN, or I mean, I don't know. Are they approaching a Turner Sports or trying to? I mean, I don't think they have quite enough compared to NBA, March Madness, baseball, right? And whatever else I might be missing. Hockey, obviously, is on Turner Sports as well. But yeah, I mean, there's somebody who's in the game. They're just not, right at the near the head of the table just yet. But they've got money, and as far as that DirecTV thing goes, I mean, that's going to have to be negotiated, and they're going to have to come to an agreement. Or a lot of people are going to miss out on that for however long that continues on.
And look, this. As you know, if you have satellite TV, DirecTV is better than Dish Network when it comes to this. Dish Network seems to be very pugilistic. We've heard Pat Crakes and Bob Thompson talk about it. They're very pugilistic when it comes to the contract being up and how much money they want from the carriers and all that. So it's happened. I've been a DirecTV subscriber for a very long time, and it's happened a couple times to me where it's like, hey, this channel's blacked out because we're negotiating. And right now, the big money people are negotiating with a lot of different. I mean, there's just a lot of tentacles out there. You'll get them all back. Don't worry about it. It'll be temporary.
They'll settle something eventually.
Because Nexstar can't afford to not have their channels distributed on DirecTV.
Yeah.
They can for a little bit, but eventually they're going to have to come to an agreement. So they'll do it. From Matt Moon, $4.99 Super Chat. The one thing about the new CU board meeting that stuck out was the athletics operations. They have generally been more vague. So...
Yeah, thank you both. Appreciate y'all for listening and also chipping in there. That's amazing, and can't say thank you enough. But yeah, I mean, there's I think this is one of I call it the eye of the beholder type of stories. It all just depends on which angle you really want to look from, and this is another one of those that if you want to look at this and say, hey, the wording's different, and coming off the heels of what we just saw, like this could be something. I totally understand that. If you want to say we've seen a million of these meetings, different language, and none of them have mounted anything, I think that's well within your right as well. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what that's going to be about or if it's anything related to even Colorado football specifically. I don't know. I really don't. And so I think it's just something to watch, and perhaps something sprouts from it, perhaps not. And, I don't think anybody's worse for the wear one way or the other. But, yeah, I mean, eye of the beholder, if you think that could be something, it very well might be.
Yeah. All right, and one more, Nathan Harvey. Pop quiz. And this has been sitting here for a while, and I have not done it. Can name as many current 2024 Conference USA teams as you can without cheating. That's from Nate in Fort Worth.
2024?
Yeah.
Well, it's 2023.
Yeah,
so
that's what he said in the thing. So
2024 Conference USA teams. Man, I'm going to have a second to think about that.
I know.
I'm trying to think about who's in the freaking league right now. No, Conference USA 2024. I'm trying to think just who's in their bottom line right freaking now. They've been through, you talk about a conference that if it was more national, has been through so much dadgum realignment over the years that the Big 12 pales in comparison to the depth and the amount of realignment, or maybe they're on par. I don't know. I feel like Conference USA has definitely had a bit more, but
I would have gotten 2.
You would have gotten 2?
I've gotten 2, and that would have been after, like, they're 2 of the first 9 that came to my mind, and it would have been UTEP and Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, I would have gotten UTEP, La Tech. Probably would have stumbled on them at some point. I would have said I was sitting there thinking I was dwelling on UTSA, but they're in the American Athletic Conference now. It's another one of those freaking, moves around. But, yeah, I would have definitely got UTEP. And, man, UAB. Beyond that.
No, UAB, no.
No? Okay,
no.
well, then it's true. I don't have no idea then.
No, okay.
I have no idea who's in Conference USA at the moment.
Here's who's coming to Conference USA. It's New Mexico State, UTEP, Sam Houston.
Oh, yeah.
Which we should know.
Yeah.
But I got that because some of the other teams are going to the WAC. So I got that a little. FIU, Jack State in Alabama, Kennesaw State in Georgia, Middle Tennessee State in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. What's up to my in-laws? Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, and Liberty.
If you would have let me sit down, I would have gotten some more of those, but I would absolutely it would have been borderline passing.
Yeah.
Are you finished, or is that all of them?
That's it. That's it. That's their conference.
I think I would have. Yeah, I think I would have. If you let me sit here, Western Kentucky, I would have eventually reeled off. But Yeah, that whole package, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, Garrett, how would you have fared on that, you think?
Not very well. I mean, I've thought of Sam Houston State, but like Paul, I couldn't remember. I was mixing them, and was it Tarleton, the one that's going the WAC?
Tarleton, SFA,
Yeah.
I think it's eventually, like, they're all, like, everybody's going, like, there's a bunch of teams going to the WAC. So.
Like UTEP, I was thinking was I know it wasn't the American, but that was kind of a fringe one. But no, I would have missed most of them.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed. I tell you, but
I'm not embarrassed just because we don't really talk about them a lot. I do feel like we should probably settle down on them at one point and kind of go through the fact that there's all of this change going on, and they're they're as directly affected as anybody. Those leagues that aren't quote unquote Power 5, because we've seen how it all rolls downhill, so to speak, right? And everybody goes scrambling. So all of a sudden you have a lot of other moves that are occurring as well. So I would have borderline. I probably would have failed that quiz. It might have been borderline, but I need to brush up on the current CUSA alignment and make sure I got my ducks in a row there for sure. But appreciate the super chat.
Yep, absolutely. And then Chris says, guys, how cool would it be if Apple bought DirecTV? Look, Apple. I'm short of everything having a tattoo, honestly, of Apple. I actually love it. Their streaming service, Apple TV Plus, is one of the ones I like the most because they put out a good amount of stuff, but not too much, and most of it's pretty good. The quality's good, so they're not doing the Netflix of, give me like Mad Libs a script together and let's make an
AI a script together.
Yeah, like let's AI a script together and get Chris Hemsworth and have him shoot some things, and then there's a movie.
Right.
But I think that I'm just of the belief, as a Teddy Roosevelt fan who believes in trust busting, that letting 3 companies own all the crap is not a good plan. I don't think it's a good plan. I think that gets us in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
So the question is if Apple owned the Pac or DirecTV?
Own DirecTV.
Own DirecTV. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like Paul. I'm not keen on more consolidation, but I know that that's like a buzzy word right now, especially in college athletics here recently. That's become quite the buzzy word, is consolidation more so than even realignment. And I think that that's something that we're going to have to come to grips with moving forward. A lot of that too that's kind of like why the Pac thing. It's bigger than just we don't talk about it all the time because it's Big 12 related. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think there might be that misconception of like, yeah, sure, they would be directly affected potentially. It would be major news if they could go grab like a Colorado, for example. Like that would be news. I don't care how bad Colorado football's been for a few years. Like that would still be notable, or any other team they could potentially pluck away. But it's all the other things that are affected and just the whole ecosystem. And that's now become a buzzy word. But that's truly why it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's just all of the tentacles of it, not just who can the Big 12 go get. I've never really viewed it that way, and I don't think it's fun to just view it solely that way, just for me personally, but to each their own. And so, having said all that, I'm more of the opinion that let's have more people in business with different groups of ownership rather than Apple owning the world, or Google owning the world. I think we're getting into a situation where there's 3 companies that are going to basically have everything under their control. And I don't know if that's a good thing in the long run. I know that's way bigger than sports and out of my element, but I'd prefer if that wasn't the case, to answer your question, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go right to our next guest because she has to catch a plane. It's our good buddy, Alexis Cubitt, who covers Louisville for the Courier Journal there, and she's in the hotel, ACC Media Days today. Thought we'd get kind of an idea from her on the ACC, and Louisville probably as excited as they've been for a football season now that one of their own, Jeff Brom, is in charge now. So probably should have taken a break somewhere in there, but it's fine. It's fine.
Need me to riff, or we got
No, we got it. Our old friend. And I only say that because we've known her.
I don't think you're old, Alexis.
But we've known her since she was a pup, just a cub student, reporter, and intern with us way back when, and now she's a big-time sports writer in Louisville with the Courier Journal. And Alexis, you're at ACC Media Days. Louisville was up day one. This is and I know you haven't been there long, but I know that you've certainly felt the vibe. This is as excited as the fan base has been for a football season in a while, wouldn't you say?
No, yeah, definitely. I think they've already sold out of season tickets. So that's definitely a thing that's happening. But no, I mean, it's been crazy the past. I mean, it's died down a little bit just because, I mean, everybody was so excited, in December and January and, leading up to it. And I think I've written every single Jeff Brom angle there's possible, aside from a couple others that I have in mind. But no, I mean, it's just a matter of, so I guess kind of backing up the thing I think people forget is that it's not like it's just an alumni. Like they have a high school football field named after the family, they're well known. All of them are good at sports. So this is kind of like, Louisville royalty a little bit coming back. So everybody's super excited to have them back and, coaching. And yeah, it's just been a very, very different atmosphere. That's for sure.
How is it different, not necessarily like good or bad or whatever you want to throw out there, but how is it compared to, the previous regime with Scott Satterfield and how especially that was operating there at the end?
It's funny because I was talking to a Clemson radio station about that, and it's different when you have a coach that wants to be there.
Totally get that, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's very different because a lot of times I think when you look at Louisville, their second longest tenured head coach was here for 10 years. Petrino, I think, did 9, but that was in 2 stints. So they haven't really had a coach that has been here for a while. A lot of people see this job as kind of a stepping stone to something bigger, what Charlie Strong did, all of them. So now when you have a coach that is like, this is my dream job, this is, I played for this school, I love the Cardinal red and white, it's a lot different. And so, just, I don't know how long you're going to be here. You might even retire here. I don't know that I could have said that for any other coach in recent years. So there is an added element to a coach that really, really loves the school, really is connected. And, it's definitely apparent and people feel that and, want to rally behind that. And like I said, season tickets are already sold out. And, I'm just really interested to see how that home opener, what that looks like and how that feels for games to actually be here.
Yeah, we had talked to Scott Satterfield at Big 12 Media Days. He's thrilled to be at Cincinnati. Like, honestly, you can hear that in his voice. And I do wonder, and this is just me spitballing, Alexis, because when he got hired a couple years ago, I mean, they wanted Jeff Brom then, and they hired Scott Satterfield. So he probably had to feel that his name wasn't Scott Satterfield, it was coach, not Jeff Brom.
Yeah, nobody wants to be a second option. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a good feeling. But he didn't really do himself any favors with the whole South Carolina thing, interviewing for that job and not necessarily handling that the right way, especially when I think they went 4-7 that year. They didn't have a great year. I'm sorry, it was after the year after they didn't have a great season. So, people take that into account. Like you said, he was already working behind the 8 ball from the very beginning because that wasn't who they wanted. So I don't know that he necessarily got a fair shake. But I also think he didn't really help his cause much later down the road. And, even this past season starting 2-3, it wasn't great, and people wanted Jeff then. So it's just a matter of, I don't know. It was just very interesting. Obviously, I caught the latter end of his tenure, but it was definitely kind of a different feel, different vibe. And, best of luck to him at Cincinnati, obviously, going to the Big 12. And, even the way that situation happened with him getting that job was very, very different because you go to Cincinnati and then come to find out that's a rivalry with Louisville, and then that ends up being the team that they play in the bowl game. So it was definitely a very different kind of December.
So as far as it goes with team personnel, I mean, they brought over Jack Plummer. There's obviously newness everywhere you look, but what are kind of the main talking points, would you say, when it comes to Louisville, the team, and what they're looking at or looking like or needing to answer, as we get about a month away from ball kicking off?
Yeah, that's the funny thing is, like, there hasn't been a whole lot of team talk. The storyline is Jeff, but, I mean, at least from a local perspective, what you look at is this line is going to be probably better than it was last year. You have a lot of receivers with a lot of questions because they're new. You don't have a lot of guys that played last year that are now going to be, starters. I think it's, 7 new receivers, include transfers and freshmen combined. So you kind of look at that. You don't know who's going to start at tight end. So, for as good as the defense should be, there are some questions at positions on offense. So you kind of look at that, but you do feel a little more confident because a quarterback has played, with Jeff for 4 years before he went to Cal. So that kind of alleviates some concern. But then you have a really good running back group, with Jawar and Maurice and, Isaac and some guys that they've added in. Obviously Jawar and Maurice kind of carried the team in the bowl game. So and that's even kind of a wonder of like, okay, how are they going to incorporate this run game with, a pass-heavy offense? Well, the solution is they're going to be pass catchers now, kind of expanding themselves. So, even though, like I said, the big storyline is, Jeff coming home, there are still some interesting things about this team that, I think they should be a 7-8 win team just based on their schedule and the personnel that they have. But I think the strength will be the D-line because they're just so stacked with returners and even added from the portal. So I think that, to me, is the biggest storyline is how good can this D-line be?
Alexis, you're there, first day, Jim Phillips talks and all of, there's been some tension in the ACC. Do you believe that the tension is gone now, or is it gone just because it really didn't have anywhere to go because of the situation they're in with their grant of rights?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is there's always going to be some kind of speculation. There's always going to be people kind of looking around. When you have, two of the most notable schools kind of speaking out about certain things, it doesn't exactly look great. But there's not really much anybody can do right now except for, window shop. But I didn't get a chance to listen to the commissioner this morning because we were talking to Jeff, just the local media, but just kind of going through some of the comments and stuff. It seems like he feels confident that everything is good right now. Trying to, explore different resources and options to keep everyone happy. But I just don't know how long you can hold the levy at this point. But at least for now, it seems like everything is safe and people are going to play nice until they have the legal right to explore other options.
Alexis, I know you've got to go catch a plane. They're not letting you stay the rest of the time. That's fine. You cover Louisville, not FSU. I was hoping you could get me some stuff from Mike Norvell. But, I was going to send you a list of 10 hard-hitting questions.
I would have definitely, for you, Paul, I would have got those for sure.
I know. You're very we have the same birthday. Like, it's what we owe each other.
Birthday buddies.
Yeah.
It's an Aries thing, absolutely.
Exactly. April 19th. That's what, we got to look out for each other. So, Alexis, travel safe, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
That's our good friend, Alexis Cubitt. I'm so very proud of her every time we have her on. I know you hear this, but I just bust with pride.
Yeah, her and I used to drive her to Midway High School games every Friday there for about a year or two, right? And we had a lot of fun, and she's really good at her job, and been amazing to watch her kind of go from place to place. Where was she prior to Louisville? It was
she was at Clemson.
Yeah, she was covering Clemson. Yeah. So she had fun doing that, and kind of learned about as high of a level as you can given the state of that program at the time, and still really. But Louisville's going to be interesting. It is a situation, though, where she talked about how, there's big differences, and you can tell when somebody wants to be there. And I'm sitting here just thinking of, like, how many times, like Matt Rule, I felt like wanted to be here, but I also felt like at some point things were calling him to be elsewhere, and that was always kind of the long-term goal. And I definitely felt like towards the end, like we couldn't enjoy the Sugar Bowl trip when they played Georgia. Little did we know, too, that Georgia was about to turn into, like, that was before Georgia completely morphed, like, fully the following year into what they've now turned into. But they beat up on Baylor in the Sugar Bowl, and that was his last game. And that wasn't a surprise because the entire week was speculation about the New York Jets. Little did we know it was the Panthers that were really the team to watch out for.
The Giants,
and the Giants were, he's a New Yorker. He's, whatever. And And he's not even a New Yorker.
Like he is.
Or was he was not a New Jersey guy? That's what it was. He wasn't a Jersey. We had Baylor fans calling him Jersey for the longest time.
He's from like legit the city. Like he grew up,
Yeah. But I was thinking of Jersey. But no, I mean, it wasn't even so much that he didn't want to be there. It's just you could tell he wanted to be somewhere else, clearly, and that's where his focus was. And not a knock on him at all, but you feel that when Art Briles was rumored for the Texas job, and the entire week of the Fiesta Bowl that year, which they would lose to UCF, was all speculation, including the Austin American-Statesman actually sending a reporter to cover that story specifically during bowl week. That was a distraction, and it made a lot of people who probably felt differently about him like sort of go like, what the hell? It just makes it weird when somebody's not fully all the way in, and whether or not they're being pulled in a direction or they're purposely going in that direction, it's not a lot of fun because you're just like, okay, well, when does this stop? When does this end like it's naturally going to? So I would imagine that's a huge breath of fresh air for Louisville to feel like, hey, we've got some sturdy ground and we can actually sit back and kind of enjoy this for the foreseeable future, if not the long term. I think that makes a world of difference for a school and a fan base. And so I'm sure that will be enjoyable. And if, hey, he can win some games on top of that, then that would obviously be icing on the cake, and that's why he's really there. But I'm glad that we did not have 3 days of media days like the ACC is going to have 3 days of media days.
Yeah. Well, and look, they have the same amount of teams, right? Really.
Yeah. Today you had what was it? Today
they're doing like 4, 4, and 3 or something like that.
Yeah. Tomorrow will be Pitt, Duke, Vatech, FSU, Virginia. Thursday, UNC, Clemson, Wake, BC, NC State.
Yeah.
And obviously the rest from today, including Louisville. But, yeah, I'm cool not having the 3-day media day. I think it works out pretty well with the Big 12 in there, too. And the Pac obviously only needed 1.
Yeah.
That was good enough for them. The SEC does, 3?
Yeah.
3, right? Or is it 4?
It feels like a whole damn week.
It does, man. It's like SEC week, like Shark Week.
I think they do 4. And then I think that the Big Ten does 3. They have 3, right? I think they have 3, especially now that they've got,
Yeah, and I feel like by the end of day 2 with in Arlington, you kind of feel like, all right, we've done our business here. That's about right.
The other thing at the end of day 2, and you guys saw this when we were there, is, man, they they'll start pulling the rug out from under you as soon as everybody leaves. I mean, it's not like you're looking around and this station here just left, and then there's a guy breaking down their table and putting it in the stack. And then you can feel the eyes looking at you like, would you guys shut up and get in your car so that we can go home?
So we can pick up these tables and leave here. Yeah.
Our job is not hard and like what we have to do. We're just cleaning up here, but we can't finish until you move your fat butts. That's kind of how you feel about it. At the end of it. And the Big 12 is very hospitable. It's just, you do feel like, oh, these guys really want to go home. Mm-hmm. They really do, the guys who are tearing down at AT&T Stadium. When we come back, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. It's a Tuesday-Thursday segment at around 4:45, give or take, where we just kind of stop down and talk about a few things typically outside of college football, and just a matter of how interesting some of the stories are that are out there. Honestly, there's some times, especially the last couple of months, where outside of college football, the news has been limited to, things like ratings or that kind of bag, which I am excited to see, like with some of the biggest drawing games this year, like what is, Oklahoma, Texas pull in as far as a rating, some of these other matchups. But I feel like now, because we're getting so close to football season, like the news is starting to kind of pick back up a little again. But if there's ever a day where there were off the radar type of stories that are outside of the lines of battle, so to speak, it would be today. Let's start off with the big news, and there's a few different things going on, but I'm sure you saw the news about Bronny James. Southern Cal signee, son of LeBron James. He is now out of intensive care. For those who may have missed it, he suffered cardiac arrest during a workout, was rushed to the hospital with a medical emergency at USC's Galen Center just yesterday. 18 years old, suffered cardiac arrest, has been released from the ICU in stable condition, but it occurred while he was practicing. They were able to treat him quickly and get him to the hospital. And the James family asked for privacy, as most would, and will update as I guess they feel they need to. But he is okay in the long run. And he is a guy who obviously is receiving a lot of attention, at least initially because of his last name. And then he's also added, to his brand, I guess, as he's grown older, both as a basketball player and social media and all that. And so for a variety of different reasons, from his famous father to his brand to his basketball, he was a, coveted pickup for Southern Cal, where he eventually signed. So remains to be seen. Like, that's probably the farthest thing on the back burner is what happens to, USC basketball. But just a scary thing to see for any 18-year-old. I feel like maybe there's once or twice a year that you hear a story like that, going back. But scary situation, but appears that there is good news in the long run, and he is okay and has been treated and is doing all right now. But just a scary deal there for young Bronny James.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot. I mean, I've known a lot of King McClure that have come back from heart problems. Johnson
K-State,
from K-State, yeah. So Keontae Johnson from Kansas State. So hopefully, this is something they can get under control and do that, because I'd hate to see Bronny James deprived of being able to do what he loves to do and chase that dream. But yeah, just really super happy he's okay, and we're not talking tragedy today.
Gosh almighty, I don't even want to imagine what that would have been like. I mean, that would have been horrific, no matter who it is. But yeah, I mean, especially, LeBron James' son, this just magnifies it by a billion. But he is okay after collapsing on the court and suffering cardiac arrest. So there you go with that story from Bronny James. And man, I'm telling you, this is some off-the-radar stuff here, and I don't even know if we'll be able to get to it all. Let me do a little bit more on the radar, though, to kind of lighten the mood for a moment here. The Cowboys come to an agreement with cornerback Trayvon Diggs. 5 years, $97 million for the former Alabama standout, one of the highest-paid corners in the NFL as of today. With that 5-year, $97 million contract extension, the deal could be worth up to $104 million if he's able to meet all of his incentives. So he joins the likes of Jalen Ramsey and Marlon Humphrey and Denzel Ward, although they all still make more total than him, or on paper have a bigger contract than him. But he's now in that realm. He was about to enter the final year of his 4-year, $6.3 million deal. So I know all of us are like, we'd take any of them. We'd take a couple zeros off and I'd still fight you for it, right? But given the grand scheme of things of what he signed and now what he signed for after the fact, pretty big glow up for Trayvon Diggs, and hard to argue that he's not deserving of it, obviously.
Yeah, that's the first of several they've got to get done. Obviously, Zach Martin did not report to camp today either, so they got to get that one worked out, which I'm sure they will. Marcus Parsons coming up. They've got a little bit more time on him. And CeeDee Lamb, they have the most amount of time on him. So we'll see. But the Cowboys have gotten, in the post-Zeke few years, I think they've gotten pretty good at getting these things done. I think they get a lot of criticism for Dak, who's now a bargain, and they'll have to redo Dak when the cap with the cap going up again. But even still,
I feel like that's a kind of a fake manufactured storyline a lot of times for the Cowboys, and their media is like my contract crisis. What's going to happen? You know what? And it's like they're going to sign with Dallas, and everything's going to be fine in the long run most of the time. And certainly with Trayvon Diggs in his situation, of course he was re-signing, but it's just nice to have that done.
I can count the people who left Dallas of their own accord in a huff on less than one hand.
Zeke's outside right now with Dez banging on the door trying to get let back in.
Nobody for everything that you can say about Jerry Jones, and most of it is accurate. I mean, there's not the one thing I will tell you is
Johnny Walker Blue. True.
Yeah, the vodka that he drinks at those media parties comes out of a tabernacle. I've seen it. It's ridiculous. It costs more than my car. But he, all those things. But the players love him. The players love him. Yeah. He treats the players really, really well. Some would say in many situations too well. But the players love him. There's not, you're not going to get some big expose of an ex-Cowboy player going, let me tell you what Jerry Jones did to me.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. You're not going to get many of those.
His players love him.
His players love him. For sure. And he's very wisely made sure of that. Yeah. So, for years, let him do whatever the hell they wanted. So
to the point of I had to backtrack a little bit there. All right, some other notes here. Running back market. We've heard a lot about, how running backs are just – They're the poor, unfortunate position in today's football when it comes to big contracts and longevity as much as anything else. But you were wondering what was going to happen in some of the situations that are going on around the league. Well, how about the Giants and Saquon Barkley coming to an agreement? His holdout not lasting very long, but there will be more on the horizon, Paul, as far as this goes, because it's not like it's a long-term solution. Former Penn State star agreeing to a 1-year deal worth up to $11 million per Ian Rappaport. He and the Giants gives him an opportunity to make more than he would just solely on the franchise tag, and he also gets a $2 million signing bonus, so I'm sure that's a nice direct deposit to hit today for Saquon Barkley, but his holdout is over, and at least for this upcoming season, he is going to be, or for another year, he's going to be locked down with an $11 million deal.
Yeah, I'm sorry that he had to cave,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be.
I'm sure there's some running backs.
He's not going to be the last. I mean, they had that big Zoom call of solidarity, and then
he started signs
Saquon,
right afterwards.
Got a very small concession from the Giants overall, and they're not going to guarantee not to franchise him next year. So, I mean, granted, if they do franchise him 2 years in a row, he'll get a raise. But yeah, it's not a good state of affairs, and I feel bad for those guys in a certain regard, and that you're trying to, this is your opportunity to make generational wealth. I know that there's a lot of fans that get grumpy about it, but if you have an opportunity to make generational wealth, you're going to do it. And this is the only one that they have in front of them right now. And maybe after their career, they can be the next Roger Staubach real estate mogul. But right now, in the present, this is what they have in front of them. So, yeah, I think it's hard, especially when you see wide receivers can pretty much ask for whatever they want. And I'm not so certain that that's not, a slightly, only a slightly better investment to give the wide receivers some of the things that they've got.
Yeah.
They last a little bit longer. Quarterbacks, all they have to say is like, oh, look, I'm in the middle of the market right now, and I'm a 2-time All-Pro, so you guys better get cracking. And the running backs are like, hey, I'm a free agent. And they're like, yes, you are. That's an astute observation.
Yeah, I don't think it's great to be like a number 3 or number 4 wide receiver, but if you're a pretty solid number 2 or up, then yeah, you've got a good situation. But for the running backs, I mean, there was Saquon holding out, and also Josh Jacobs remains holding out from the Raiders. But now Saquon is going to report to camp, so that wasn't even long enough to be a saga, but he does re-sign there. Meanwhile, I did want to make mention with the Cowboys, Zach Martin not reporting to camp. All-pro offensive lineman, future Hall of Famer, did not sign, is not reporting to camp, so that is one thing that I think you talked about, did you not, yesterday a little bit, that will have to get resolved for the Cowboys, but they don't have a lot of question marks, and the Trayvon Diggs news is obviously huge news for them today. Brock Purdy, former Iowa State quarterback, obviously burst on the scene last year with the 49ers. He is cleared to return to practice and will begin training camp as the QB1 per head coach Kyle Shanahan. He's expected to start practicing on Thursday with the starting offense, cleared without restriction, is what Shanahan told The Athletic. That follows surgery back in March to repair a torn UCL in his throwing elbow, that injury occurring in the NFC Championship game. So Brock Purdy is back and was supposed to be sidelined for, 6 months or so, which I guess lines up to about right now. I mean, I guess there could have been a here or there on how long that was going to last, but sounds like he's made a pretty quick recovery, and so he is QB1 entering training camp. And I'm just curious of, like, is this for real, and is he, like, the guy again this year, or is this one of those, like, they figured him out, or it was, you know what I mean? Because it's just as, I mean, it's 50-50 on what's actually true or not. I tend to believe, like, no, he's going to be the dude, and Shanahan's like, you can't ask for many offensive minds better than him to work with. But it was just so surprising kind of how he burst out last year that you just wonder, okay, well, what's the follow-up, and especially coming off of an injury to your throwing elbow?
Well, with Trey Lance, like, they've got a lot of interesting things going on in San Francisco right now. And the thing is, outside of quarterback, they don't have holes. Like, their offensive line is fantastic. Their defense is fantastic. They have really good wide receivers. They've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and guys that they've drafted. Like, they are deep everywhere. They're even technically deep at quarterback in that, like, Sam Darnold's going to be the third stringer. I know that he's not, any great shakes, but I'd rather have a number 1 overall or number 4 overall pick as my third stringer than most. So they'll be able to figure some things out with Kyle Shanahan. So we'll see. I mean, if quarterback is the thing that ultimately does them, then it ultimately does them. But
well, it's great for Matt Campbell and company to have a guy like that where they can just really show, not that he's their only pro by any means, but to have a big-time starting quarterback.
That's a really good thing for Iowa State to be able to be like, look, this guy was the last pick in the draft.
Right.
All right? He was playing here. Like,
No, that's huge. Feather in your cap if you're Iowa State. So, yeah, I mean, if he continues to succeed, that's immensely positive for that program, but just good news for him in general that he is going to be okay. I don't want to get into every single thing here, and I'm going to have to hold back just for the sake of time. Like, I might have to hold back on Tuberville. We might just have to spend time on that.
We can maybe just do that in the next segment.
Yeah, mention him talking in the latest with what NIL and all that's going on there as far as the politics of NIL and trying to figure out some ways that we can better that. I do want to make mention, though, of a story we had the other day. We were talking about Jordan Addison and his speeding. And so I'm not one of those that, like, lambastes a guy and doesn't have all the facts and then just leaves it there and doesn't worry about correcting anything. And I don't know if this is really a correction or not, but he's at least given his side of the story, and take it for what it's worth. But after getting pulled over last Thursday for speed and reckless driving, going 140 miles per hour, he says that, based on I guess they've launched an investigation. He was not arrested, but, the Vikings have made their team statement. And since then, Addison's now come out and said, and this was late last week, but we didn't get to it, that he made a mistake. He used poor judgment. We all know that. I recognize it, own that. It sounds like, ChatGPT came up with that statement, but apparently he was going 140 in a 55 mile per hour because his dog was sick. Did you see that story?
Yes, and as a person who's had to leave this show twice for dog-related situations, I certainly understand wanting to go home and see your dog. Now, I did not speed on the way home.
You go 140 at 3 a.m.?
I did not. No.
In a 55?
No.
Yeah, in your Lamborghini Urus?
No, I don't bring my Lamborghini to work. We don't have great parking back here, so I just leave it around.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, he said that it was a situation where his dog was having an emergency at home. That's why he was speeding. That was from the police report. So that's where it was lifted off of last week. But I wanted to follow up because we did make mention of it, and take that for what it's worth. I hope that's true. If not, I hope he learned a very, very valuable lesson and realizes how lucky he was to walk away from that, and so was everybody else. And I guess I'll end it with this because we were just talking about and this has been widely discussed, but I just have to say it just for posterity. We're talking about these contracts for like running backs. I'm sure you've seen the big contract talks about Mbappe and Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabian soccer team Al Hilal, which has apparently offered the PSG super soccer star, worldwide star, an ungodly amount of money, offering to pay a $332 million fee price tag to Paris Saint-Germain. Not to mention the fact that the total would be $776 million for a one-year deal for Mbappe and Saudi Pro League club Al Hilal. Let's see, 776, the overall total of that. But yeah, the price tag for the fee itself, $332 million. And it's all real. Like, people are like, BS, there's no way that's possible. It's absolutely. It's a PIF, same thing, the public investment fund that we've talked about, in various terms when it comes to Live Golf and Saudi, entrance into American sports. That's where it's be coming from. So it's an endless pit of money. The previous record for a transfer is held by PSG. Neymar came in for $245 million back in 2017, and then Mbappe was second. He had a $200 million transfer prior to that. But yeah, a total fee of $776 million to go play in the Saudi League. And man, what a dilemma I would think that probably is for somebody. And I don't know Mbappe and how he leans politically, or how involved he is. And like, well, I don't know about that's insane money. And for anybody who's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna buy everything, you're like, nah. But then you see that and you're like, well, actually, maybe so. If they're paying $776 million for a single player for a single season.
Yeah, Jack doesn't think it's going to happen. Jack's our resident soccer expert. He said he doesn't think that, because Mbappe won. The thing is, 1 year, because he really wants to play for Real Madrid, I believe. So, he really wants to go there, but he has 1 year left with PSG. So, I don't know, $776 million. And again, I don't care how much they pay you. You have a boss when you do that, and Tiger knew it. Messi knew it. I kind of hope, just my personal feelings on it, that Mbappe knows it. But man,
$770 million for a year's work. Garrett, would you stay with us over $770 million from ESPN?
I love y'all, but I don't know, man. That's a lot of money, bro.
Yeah,
$770 million.
Yeah, then I would never have to do anything else again. And then, when people ask me about, how I feel about all the things they've done, I can be like, well, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, locked away in my mansion. I know it's such a, I feel icky even thinking about it. You know?
I mean, I don't even want to pretend to know what I would be thinking in that situation, because that's such ungodly. Like, you know what? I don't know. I can't even speak because I'll never be in that situation. But I mean, I don't. That kind of money that you can probably buy most people when you're talking about paying, $250 million just to free them basically from their current contract, and then paying them $750 million of another of that same, the billion price tag to just pay them for a season. That's just insane. So that's been taking that whole piece of the sports atmosphere and universe, that storyline of the PIF and Saudi Arabian involvement has taken another step in, I guess, public talk because of that reported contract that they've offered. So no word on what he's going to do ultimately, at least that I haven't seen, but that's crazy money, and we'll see what happens there. But to say no, now that would really be the story, right? To say no would be very interesting, but I mean, I don't know. That's crazy. So there's a few things off the radar.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Craig. When we come back, there is another NIL bill, which is actually not good news for the other NIL bill that is in the Senate. This is Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin. That have come up with one, and this one is there's a couple things in here that you can tell an old school college football coach wrote it. Anyway, or I don't know how much he did, but I know that this certainly has his influence all over it. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. How crazy is this? 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport totals values of $4,000 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. How crazy is that? Or the 2023 Jeep Compass, get 10% below MSRP. That's right, these deals are hot just like our summer days in Texas. Remember, first responders get another $500 in savings. So come find the Jeep that's right for you and save big at Alan Samuels in Waco. Make this the summer sales event at Alan Samuels during the hot days of summer. And this month in July, get legendary 2023 Dodge Chargers or Challengers, SXT, GT, or RT models. Your choice with total values up to $2,000. Alan Samuels in Waco is the place for you to shop for your next Dodge. Shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and find the hot rod for you. Come by and visit the showroom at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. See the Demons and Scat Packs they have loaded the sales floor with. They won't last long, as you truly have the last call models of legendary muscle cars only at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas. And always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. So we've talked a lot about the NIL bills that the NCAA has wanted to see in Congress. There are 2 right now. We talked about one last week that came. They're both bipartisan. That came from Senators Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, Jerry Moran of Kansas, and Cory Booker of New Jersey. And this one is from Democrat Joe Manchin and Republican Tommy Tuberville. And Tommy Tuberville, obviously, former coach at Auburn and Cincinnati and Tech.
All-time great at Texas Tech. Legendary stint at Texas Tech.
Left in the middle of an actual recruiting trip to go to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that was the rumors. Yeah, he ducked out, during the whole deal. So, that was wild.
Where's Coach Tuberville? He had to run out.
It might have taken Tech a little while to get over that, but they're far better off, I think, now at this point.
So this is the Protecting Athletes, Schools, and Sports Act. The bill would preempt NIL state laws and require a uniform NIL contract for all parties entering into said contract. It would allow the NCAA to prohibit certain types of deals, such as those with gambling companies or alcohol brands. The NCAA would be in charge of enforcing and investigating such rules, but would have the support of the Federal Trade Commission, which would handle the registration of agents and collectives, as well as the National Public NIL Deal Registry. Collectives and boosters would be required to formally be affiliated with schools. And the act would guarantee health insurance for sports-related injuries for uninsured student athletes for 8 years following graduation from a 4-year institution. And there's some deals on that. And athletes would only be able to transfer and play right away after completing their first 3 years of academic eligibility. This is the part that sounds like it was written by an old school coach.
Well, this is also the part where Bruce Feldman chimed in and said Tuberville didn't even stay at Texas Tech 3 years before he bailed out of that program right in the middle of a recruiting dinner like we just talked about. So he could bail out in the middle of a recruiting dinner, but these athletes, they have to stay for 3 years and can't budge. That just seems a bit hypocritical, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that Joe Manchin, by the way, came down off his yacht to do some work to do this. The act would establish a publicly accessible internet website on which the FTC shall publish and frequently update anonymized and aggregated name, image, and likeness data. So while you wouldn't know who had it, you would know how much is being spent. So then you could probably also, a lot of times, guess who that is at certain places. But this is, I would say that this is not good for this getting done because these bills have a lot of things similar. They're both very vague on whether students can ever be called athletes. They're both include healthcare provisions. the last bill would allow athletes to go undrafted in professional sports, and then the ability to return to school, which is something I kind of like a little bit, but then that really messes up your timetable on building a roster.
Yeah, let's kind of unpack it here. Let's use a little bullet point that Nicole Auerbach put together on her article. So it would make any state laws that include revenue sharing illegal. Also allows the NCAA to prohibit certain types of deals, as you mentioned, with gambling companies or alcohol brands. Keep gambling out of college sports, please.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They've infiltrated everywhere. You can infiltrate this show if you'd like to. Just hit me up. But still, as far as college sports goes, like, we don't need them involved in that as well. Alcohol, I totally understand. I get that most college athletes probably drink alcohol, but I don't think there's anything wrong with not having them a part of the broadcast or as part of these deals. The bill would make any state laws that include revenue sharing illegal. That seems like pretty major. That seems like it's a pretty notable part of this.
That's a shot right at California right there.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's a shot into the heart of anybody who's trying to get revenue sharing to become a thing and that feel like that's the next logical step. Now, granted, a lot of those people are at least in some cases, of course the athletes would love to have revenue sharing. I'm sure their families would love revenue sharing. I'm sure the sharks that encircle them, though, would really love revenue sharing. But yeah, the bill making any state laws that include revenue sharing illegal, well, that just creates a whole potential set of messes. What if the SEC were to decide that we're going to move forward with revenue sharing? I mean, that's one of those things where there's going to be split opinions on that. As clearly as you've outlined, like the state of California is trying to, in so many ways push that. So that's definitely notable as making revenue sharing illegal, no matter the state law. NCAA in charge of enforcing and investigating such rules, but would have the support of the Federal Trade Commission, which handle the registration of agents and collectives, as well as the National Public NIL Deal Registry. Collectives and boosters would be required to be formally affiliated with specific schools. So how do we feel about a national registry of public NIL deals and collectives and agents and all of that being formally affiliated and registered? I actually think that's a good idea. I think that if the more above board you can keep this and regulate it, then the better. I think it's a good idea in theory, but I worry about it in practice because, I mean, our government's not good at. Do we do that for everything?
Yeah,
I mean, we don't keep that track. We don't count every penny of everything else. Why are we going to suddenly do it with college athletes?
And there's these things will now have to be registered, and we have other things that won't be. I mean, I don't know. We're not good at this. We're not good at it.
Yeah,
so I don't know if it's going to work or if it's just going to be one of the things that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, and they would have a website, the FTC, where you could go and look up the exact NIL deals. So I can see where we're privately. I mean, as much as we would probably love to know some of those things, like how much is so and so getting paid. That reminds me, I forgot about the Arch Manning note that he signed with Panini Cards. So he's not even played and probably won't even play this year much. And he's already getting deals because of his star power. But anyways, there would be a federal registry and you could go check out, I guess, all these deals. And there's definitely some people that are opposed to that idea. The act would guarantee health insurance for sports-related injuries for uninsured student athletes for 8 years following graduation from a 4-year institution. So there is the 8 years after for graduation, though, I think a key word here. Following graduation, the responsibility to fall either upon the school at which the athlete played or a newly formed trust fund taken from 1% of annual proceeds from revenue-generating collegiate tournaments, including the men's basketball tournament and the college football playoff. So health insurance and some of that would come from the tournaments themselves and following, your active play for what looks like it would be several years as long as you graduated.
Yeah, health insurance has to be a big part of this. I think that... it's
sports-related injuries, though, was the key phrase, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just give them health insurance that covers everything in general.
Yeah, I don't want to bog down. I think it's more like if you tear your ACL, that's sports. Okay, they'd cover that, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think having health insurance that would cover those things is important because just because you didn't go to the pros doesn't mean you're not going to have a lasting injury or something that happened to you when you were 21. So yeah, I think that there are good parts to both of these things that maybe if they can get them together and make it work will work. It just, I have so little faith in our ability to actually
work together
and execute these things. And here's the other part that's really going to be unfortunate for the NCAA. They can now say, look, we've got bills. It's now up to the leaders to pass them or to bring them up to vote. There's 2 different ones. And so now you have to figure out which one you're going to do.
Well, let's get into that. There's one more bullet point on that she outlaid on this new bipartisan bill from Manchin and Tuberville, and that would be the transfer part that you mentioned. I don't think we really talked about that, though. Athletes would only be able to transfer play right away after completing their first 3 years of academic eligibility. Exceptions to this would include a death in the player's family or a head coach or position coach leaving the school. So that opens up a whole door that otherwise, if it was shut, would seem very limiting, but that at least gives you some freedom, and yet 3 years at a place, I don't think that's going to be a very favorable part of this at all.
That's why it's probably not going to happen because it'll get fought. They already lost legally in court on that particular issue. And just because they pass a law, now they have to pass a law that says that this court case, was they've been all these different things that have happened. And if a head coach leaves, okay, that means that you can limit the transfer portal some because while there's a lot of head coach vacancies, that's not all of it. But if you have a position coach leaving, that means any coach leaving, then that's all that they have to say because that happens all the time.
Yeah. It does, yeah, because, just for guys that don't work out or guys that get calls elsewhere, I was thinking about, how many teams have lost a wide receivers coach like 3 years in a row? So you just have an open gate basically to anybody to transfer every year. Although it's not really different from that right now, this would be more limiting in that you'd have to have that reason, whereas opposed to right now, you can just do it just because you want to and because you think the grass is greener elsewhere. But those are the basic parts of this. That would be the national registry, for deals to go and be able to look at. Would have all that information in a single place, and also formal affiliation for collectives and boosters, the prohibition of alcohol or gambling deals, the guaranteed health insurance as long as you're 3 years in. And then the transfer part of this, which it does seem like the transfer one's the most strict one, and that's the one that probably will get this caught up, is just the whole 3 years before you're able to transfer other than the coaching part of this. And based on what she wrote, these are pretty similar overall. The restrictive part of that transfer piece of Manchin and Tuberville is definitely the big difference.
And the antitrust piece.
And the antitrust piece is the other big difference.
Yeah. I actually don't know if either of these bills has been written to get passed or they've just been written to be like they're there. So
they're there, but at least they're, I guess if you're on the NCAA side of things or you're on the schools, whoever is in favor of having broad rulings and how all this should operate nationally rather than every state law has its own little individual thing. This is progress. The fact that they're even talking about this and the fact there's been as many articles written about it. So clearly, old Charlie has done some good, Mr. Baker, roaming the halls of D.C. and talking to his old buddies, far more than it seems like the previous regime was able to get as far as momentum going. But does it end up in an actual, bill at the end of this? That remains to be seen, and it does feel like perhaps you're going to have some melding together, although they're sort of similar, but some maybe all comes together at some point, but standing on their own, it's hard to see either of these just, passing through with flying colors. But hey, like I said, it's more than anybody thought was probably even possible at this point. There's actually a little inkling of maybe Charlie Baker got some work done and maybe he did. We don't know because we're not at the end road, but that was of interest, that proposed bill.
Yeah. Also, there's some questions in the chat room. Kim Coulter asked, should they have to pay? Yeah, they're going to pay income taxes on your NIL deals. That's never been an option to not pay the income taxes. Now, it's an option to try and not pay your income taxes and see what happens on the other end, which is not going to be good. But yeah, no, all these deals, the NIL deals, don't come from the schools. Remember that. They don't come from the schools. They come from outside entities. So it's just like being a 1099 or having a job somewhere else. They're going to have to pay taxes on their income. And when they don't report that income, then they can see what will happen. So, but yeah, I think that, they'll have to do that. Now, the paying the benefits on the health insurance. Kim, you asked that as well. I don't know if that'll be part of it, if that'll be tax-free or not. So
yeah, I don't know about the tax part of it, and I think that's probably a bridge they cross when they get there, Kim, because there's obviously a lot to unpack and a lot to sort through with all of the changes this would entail. But the Power A5, the Autonomous 5, which is the Power 5, but I think it's just the more formal way to refer to them. They did release a statement in regards to this, and they said the introduction of today's bipartisan NIL legislation from Senators Manchin and Tuberville represents another step forward on the pathway to securing the future of college athletics. The recent increase in activity from lawmakers, which I was just talking about, demonstrates the growing consensus that federal NIL legislation is necessary, and now is the time to act. We will continue working with members of Congress from both parties to develop a federal NIL standard in the coming weeks and months. So I think they've probably gone farther than we expected under Charlie Baker. Maybe not. Maybe I was just a pessimist. Wouldn't be the first time. But yeah, maybe they're actually on the road to something here. It seems like there's at least a bit of momentum as opposed to the brick wall they were seemingly running into head first over and over and over again for what was, I don't know, a good year or so, it felt like. So, yeah, there you go with that.
All right. When we come back, John McClain of the 610 Sports Radio, formerly of the Houston Chronicle, but 610 Sports Radio, John McClain, NFL Hall of Fame columnist, joins us to talk the NFL training camps opening and holdouts and all that. That's coming up next, 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
John McClain joins us now. John, we haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. Did you get some vacay in before training camp started?
Everywhere I go, Paul, I still do talk shows and podcasts and write columns for sportsradio610.com. I just do it in different places. I came up to Waco this past weekend for the funeral of a woman, Nell Hart, that I've known just over 50 years. Saw a lot of friends. It was like a reunion, condolences to her son, Gary, and Dana, her daughter, and their families. And so I still worked, but, truth is, Paul, what I do is not work. The last time I really worked, I mowed yards in Waco. I did that, and I worked at Goldstein McGill's department men's store selling men's clothes while I was a freshman at MCC. And then I started working for Dave Campbell and Tribune Herald going in my junior year at Baylor. So I haven't worked really since I worked at Goldstein's, because what we do, talking about sports for a living and writing about sports, that's not work.
Amen.
No.
Amen.
Amen, John. Absolutely.
We're so lucky.
So, John, Texans start training camp. C.J. Stroud obviously in the fold. What is the outlook for them right now, given the almost entirely new roster that they have?
D'Amico Ryan's the new coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, although he'll call the defenses. He's not announced that yet, but he will. And we all know Stroud's going to be the starting quarterback, even though they haven't announced it, and I think that's smart. Keep some doubt there for him. Make sure the veteran players know when he's anointed as the starter, he will have earned it over Davis Mills, the starter for his first 2 years in the league. And they do have a lot of new players. Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys, Noah Brown from the Cowboys. Noah Brown coming off the only good season he had with the Cowboys. And he was very impressive in the offseason, playing inside and out, 6'2", 215. Schultz signed a 1-year, $9 million contract, and there's a good chance he will be C.J. Stroud's leading receiver. And so they've got a lot of changes on both sides of the ball. Last 3 years, they've won 4-4 in 3 games. And it's hard to believe 4 years ago they were in the playoffs, beat Buffalo, blew a 24-point lead at Kansas City, and went straight down the toilet after that. And so people here are fired up, not about the playoffs. People are smart. They understand that if this team could win 6 games, double last year's win total, that would be progress. Anything else would be like a cherry on top of a ice cream soda.
And I'm sure most Texans fans know this, but for anybody just interested in learning more about them, they should check out your column on Sports Radio 610, 10 Things Texans Have to Accomplish in D'Amico Ryan's first training camp. There's a lot of good information in there, John. And towards the end, you bring up, Jalen Petrie. You mentioned him and what a great year he had last year, and kind of figuring out the rest of what might happen at safety. But for him in particular, what does he need to be better at coming into year number 2?
There are several players, not a lot, but several. They have no worries about it all, and Petrie's one. One of the things Petrie struggled at for a while last year was he took bad angles and missed some tackles, and it was glaring. But he fixed it. And Lovie Smith was the defense coordinator and the head coach, and they worked well together. And then Petrie is a fan favorite a coach's favorite. This staff, especially D'Amico Ryans and defense coordinator Matt Burke, they love Petrie. He'll be working with 10-year veteran Jimmy Ward, who played his first 9 seasons with the 49ers and came with Ryans. And so those two will give them the best safety tandem they've had maybe forever.
John, some holdouts around the league. Nick Bosa, Zach Martin. The running back situation has gotten really strange, and Saquon Barkley didn't stick to his guns very long. Which one jumps out at you as the most that do you think will last the longest?
Guys under contract are fined $50,000 a day, and those fines can't be rescinded. And Bosa, Chris Jones at Kansas City, those guys who are Zach Martin, I saw this happen to Dwayne Brown, left tackle here in 17. He missed time. It cost him $4 million in fines. And they couldn't do like the old days and say, yeah, come on in, we'll forgive the fines. They have to take it out of the contracts. Dwayne Brown ended up getting traded to Seattle, got a new contract next year, but he would have gotten that in Houston. He was mad because they wouldn't redo his deal with 2 years left. So these guys better seek a balance. Now, Bosa's on his rookie contract, so they can't fine him, and so he can stay out as long as he wants. But, boy, when you hold out a long time, you come in, no matter how hard you've worked to be in shape, you're not in football shape. You run the risk of having a lot of pull muscles, and then you run the risk of not getting off to a slow start. And I was surprised. I didn't think that about Zach Martin until I heard about it last week, and sure enough, he decided to do it. But, some teams don't have a lot of contract issues with veteran players. They find ways to get it done. Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers. So I think that Zach Martin, maybe he wants more money, obviously. And even though he gets to go to Southern California where the weather's fabulous, a lot of guys just don't like being at every day at training camp. I used to see guys, they wouldn't report because they said they hurt their back lifting weights and things like that, and they had miraculous recovery. So you can't ever rule that out.
Josh Jacobs remains holding out. As Paul mentioned, though, Saquon Barkley, that was short-lived. He agrees to a 1-year deal. What does that tell you, if anything, about, I guess, Barkley's situation? And what do you make, John? I mean, you've seen it probably plastered all over Twitter and national headlines, all of the running backs speaking out about their position in the game right now. Just what do you make of that situation? Is it anything that will actually, create something new, or is this just kind of the way of the world?
It's the way of the world. Why in the world when the NFL do something, give players more money, they don't have to give them? It was created by the collective bargaining agreement that the unions collectively bargained and signed off on. And the problem is colleges put out so many running backs, and they throw the ball so much, most of them can catch the ball. It's not like it used to be where the running backs had pitchfork hands. And you can keep them for 7 years if you're a first-round pick, 5 years on the initial contract, then you franchise in 2 years, and then cut them loose and start over after 7 seasons, like what happened to Zeke Elliott, who still can't get a job. And at some point, the dominoes will fall. Teams will give these guys money that is not impressive, but give them a lot of incentives. If they stay healthy, they do well, and they help the team. Problem with Josh Jacobs, he didn't have his 5th-year option picked up for a reason. The Raiders didn't think he earned it. Then he goes out and leads the NFL in rushing. So what? Did it help him make the playoffs? No. And they can point out to his agent, hey, Josh was great last year, but it didn't help us make the playoffs. Saquon Barkley was great last year, and they did make the playoffs. So they were a surprise team, but it's not going to change. Best thing you can do is be a player not picked in the first round, do great your first 2 years, and get an extension before your third year or after your third year, and hope that you do well enough that you get paid a lot of money through your 7th season. We're not going to see any more LaDainian Tomlinson hit double figures. Frank Gore played like 16 years. Jerome Bettis, those guys hung around, bouncing from team to team for about the minimum or a little more because they love football. But nothing is going to be done to help the poor running backs make more than $10.1 million a year.
Yeah, John, there's no, like you said, there's no incentive. The NFL doesn't have to change. Collective, I can't even think of a way that they could collectively bargain that in to make it better for them.
Well, they can't, because the other positions have any sympathy for them. The quarterbacks have any sympathy.
No.
Yeah, they can come out and say they do, but are they going to give up something to help those guys get more money? It's weird, because tight ends make more than they do. And Christian McCaffrey, we're not going to see any more like him, where he got $16 million a year, even though he's a great player and a great receiver. He had a lot of injuries. If anybody deserves it among running backs, it's Derrick Henry, because he's now 29 in the last year of his contract. You think he's going to get a big deal when he hits 30? No. But they'll run him till his tongue's dragging the ground trying to catch the Jaguars and win the AFC South. And then maybe he signs a 1-year extension, or he just walks.
John, the Cowboys signed Trayvon Diggs to a big contract today. Do you think that was a good move for them?
I don't keep up enough. I thought they didn't think so, they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Zach Martin would say, hey, I've been a perennial Pro Bowler. We always have a good running game. I'm a key part of that. I'm a good soldier. Give me some of that money. Problem is, Zach Martin's under contract. And I don't blame players wanting money. I don't blame them doing whatever they think they need to do. They get cut while they're under contract. Teams can get rid of them on a whim. So never be angry at players trying to get money when the league can sign a guy to a contract and then cut him the next day.
John, do you have, we haven't talked about this in a while. You used to be in a bunch of movies. Do you have anything coming up on the horizon now that you're semi-retired?
No, I've been on strike.
Oh yeah, it's
2009.
True.
And
you were way ahead of this. You were way ahead of it.
I'm so semi-retired. I write 3 columns a week, do 3 40-minute podcasts, and make 11 weekly radio appearances, including 6 on Sports Radio 610. And so I'm just doing a different thing where it's a whole lot easier now than it was. And Craig, you mentioned that thing I did about 10 things Texans need to accomplish. I did one yesterday, 5 players under the most pressure in training camp, and for reason to help the team be better. And a hot button topic down here right now, fans and media have gone ballistic because the Titans are going to wear Oilers uniforms, which is their right, because the Oilers are the Titans. They're not the Texans. On my radio station today at 11 o'clock on In the Loop, the three of us were screaming at each other, and everybody thinks I should move to Nashville because I like it. I want to see those Columbia blue uniforms, and I love them, and there's only one team that can wear them, and that's the Titans. But it is a hot-button topic, and when they announce it officially that they're going to do it against Houston in December in Nashville, I'm going to write a column with guys like Warren Moon, Dan Pastorini, Robert Brazil, and Bruce Matthews talking about how much they like it, too.
John, I guess they want the Browns thing where the league would have just retroactively kind of taken the Browns name back, but that's just not going to happen, right?
No, they negotiated with the mayor there to keep it. The mayor did with the NFL to keep the name. They moved. They became the Ravens in Baltimore. And people in Houston didn't have the passion for the Oilers. Now, all of a sudden, they act like they did. They did when they were winning. But they moved after the 96 season. In the last 2 seasons, the crowds were awful. Fans were mad at Bud Adams. And the Oilers, Tennessee Oilers, wore Columbia blue for 2 years before they became the Titans, got a new stadium, new facility, and new uniforms with different colors. And then when Bob McNair got his franchise in 99, he was like, we want to be the Oilers. We want to wear Columbia blue. It was a moot point because Bud Adams got the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, put in writing. Nobody could ever do that except his franchise.
John McClain, Sports Radio 610 in Houston. John, thanks for hopping on as always.
Check 'em Bears.
There you go. It's not the same without that. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run, and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, that's TexasBeefHouse.com. Everyone, when they think of Wagyu, the first thing they think about is beef, and that's obviously what you guys specialize in, and you raise it right there from your pasture to the customer. The fillets, you have ribeyes, you have New York strips. I've tried them all. These are always available, correct, by ordering online?
Yes, everything's available, TexasBeefHouse.com. You can order one package of steaks up to as many packages as you want. All the steaks come 2 steaks per package. We've got New York strip fillets. The fillets are so tender you can almost cut them with a fork. Ribeyes. We've got top sirloin, and we've got regular sirloin, and even flat iron, flank steak, and flap steak. They're all great.
Oh, that sounds great. Fajita meat?
Yes, we've got skirt steak and flank steak that we use for fajita meat.
Samantha Duvall's the marketing director with Aaron Duvall, of course, in the Duvall family. What they've done, family-owned, operated, and they run TexasBeefHouse.com. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu, not just steaks, but also so much more. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at PettyClinicLowT.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
By the way, tomorrow, Garrett, I want to start off the show with that miles traveled thing in the Big 12.
Okay.
That was pretty interesting. We'll do that. I just saw, I'd forgotten I sent that to you. Craig, Justin Herbert, before we get to this?
Yeah, so quick note, we were just talking NFL with John McClain, and during the commercial break, former Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert signing his brand new contract extension, 5 years, $262.5 million, keeps him with the Chargers through the 2029 season. That's per Adam Schefter and Lindsey Terry. But, yeah, they get that done before the first practice of training camp, and he now joins the likes of Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts as far as some of the newer deals that have been done, and Joe Burrow still remains unsigned, so you can only imagine what that just keeps creeping up to.
Oh, he's going to Scrooge McDuck his way through.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be
through
beautiful.
Cincinnati. My gosh.
And then Mahomes will renegotiate and be like the first billionaire American athlete or something like that. I mean,
exactly.
I wouldn't put it past him. But yeah, Justin Herbert, huge extension for him and the Chargers.
All right, top 5 things Iowa State must do to win the Big 12. I actually skipped over them and went to BYU, Garrett. And I'm surprised you didn't notice this when we were doing it last week, but I skipped over. I did BYU before Iowa State, and Iowa State's actually picked ahead of BYU in the media poll. But it doesn't matter. I skipped over Baylor so that the guys would be here. So anyway, we're kind of scattershot at this point. Top 5 things Iowa State must do to win the Big 12. Number 5, score more points. That offense has to get way, way, way better. And I don't think we really need to expound on this. They didn't score a lot of points last year. They had an excellent defense. They'll probably have an excellent defense again. But if they don't, get in the 27, 28, 30-point-a-game range, they're probably going to have the same problem they did before.
Yeah, it is funny like how similar the Iowa schools are in that they, love low-scoring defensive affairs. But, yeah, they did not score a lot of points. I mean, that Iowa State game was 10-7. It was just so fitting because it was actually perfect for both teams, and the Cyclones finally won that one. But, yeah, dude, you look at their Big 12 slate. They put up 24 against Baylor in a loss, lost 14-11 to Kansas, lost 10-9 to K-State, lost 24-21 to Texas, 27-13 they lost to Oklahoma, 20-14 they lost to Oklahoma State, 14-10 they lost to Texas Tech. They put up 14 in a loss to TCU, which wouldn't matter. TCU named their score, but I mean, dude, that is pathetic in today's college football. And a couple of those, it's like, all right, cool, defense played well, but that's just that's insane how little they were able to put up points on the scoreboard. So, yeah, they must be better as far as scoring points goes.
Absolutely. Number 4, stay under the radar for a bit. I think that if they can kind of sneak up on some people and build a little winning streak and then be underestimated, have that chip on your shoulder, I think that's the best they can do to kind of build some momentum going on with them because, we really – don't know a lot. And we'll get to some of the other things in a second, but we really don't know a lot about them, especially on the offensive side of the ball with what they're going to do. So I think they're going to have to sneak up on some folks and get a couple of dubs.
I think they're just going to have a better break, rather than, throwing a pick in the end zone to, basically injure opportunities. Hunter Decker's got to protect the football better. Just in general, they have to be better across the board on offense. But yeah, I think they're pretty under. I think the problem with them, nationally, they're under the radar and will always be that way for the most part. But I think in the Big 12, the coaches know Iowa State's coming to town or we're going to Iowa State. That's going to be a tough game, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, no matter who you are, really, you just know that you're going to feel the effects of that afterwards. And if you're not careful, you can get to a slugfest and actually, get hit with a knockout punch without realizing it. So, in terms of grander aspirations, I think that the less attention they get is probably the better for them, and they can just focus on themselves and go about their business.
Yep. Number 3, overcome the off-field distractions. And I say this, they don't usually have some, but they've got gambling stuff going on there at Iowa State. And I don't know, we don't know how that's going to end up. Where that's going to go.
Yeah, I thought I just saw yesterday some resolution with one of those, and I'm trying to search for it now. I thought that there had been a conclusion on maybe a particular player, but I saw it in passing, and I should have tabbed it, which I didn't. But, yeah, they were involved. They share a lot of similarities with Iowa, obviously. We were talking about it. And so it happens that they both shared the fact that some of their student athletes were also – gambling against rules. And so there's been that investigation. As you mentioned, Matt Campbell talked about it at media days. And I guess the big question was just who all is involved and to what extent and what impact could that have? But he had said, up to a couple weeks ago that it was still ongoing. So, yeah, it remains to be seen of how that might affect them, but it's something that they definitely can't dwell on or focus too much on.
Yeah, and Hunter Deckers might be one of the guys that's kind of caught up in that. So that's
it's hard to know. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's like his name's being brought up, so I'd imagine I just missed a story where he was like specifically mentioned. But yeah, obviously, if that's the case, then I know you got a good young quarterback that you like, but you'd rather see Hunter Deckers back and hopefully improving upon what he did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, find new playmakers. Xavier Hutchinson's gone. They've lost some guys on defense, but particularly Xavier Hutchinson being gone, he was so good for them. I think he's going to be really good with the Texans. I think that was a great landing spot for him long term because I think C.J. Stroud is going to work out well. I really like how the Texans had their offseason, but they do need to find new playmakers and get guys who can help, whether it's Hunter Deckers or anybody. That's going to help that offense, but they've got to find those guys because they haven't really been there since Brock Purdy and Breece Hall left.
No, I mean, I think they're missing out on more of the you got Jarrell Brock and other guys. I don't really worry too much about running backs with them, but for what felt like the longest time, you had like Charlie Kohler or someone like that at tight end, right? And I don't know that they quite have that type of a player at that position. So, yeah, I mean, I think you always feel good about their run game, but given some of Decker's – and look, it's not like he's like we'll see how he plays this year. He could be way better than he was last year and just make fewer mistakes, and you automatically would look way better than you did last year. But, yeah, they need to find some guys to help him out and carry the load, and especially when you're averaging for like a 7-week stretch, like 14 points a game. I mean, that's not just one thing or another. That's pretty much the entire deal. So, yeah, they need to find some playmakers. And, look, Xavier Hutchinson was a really good player. He caught a lot of passes for them, so it won't be very simple. But they do have some older guys, I think, that should be, at this point, incubated and ready to go and ready to pop for them.
Yep. Number 1, score more points. Yes, it's on here twice. Score more points. I couldn't think. I mean, look, really, Matt Campbell's doing an excellent job with almost everything else in that roster, save for something that he and many other coaches, like, he and Kirk Ferentz are just two of many coaches going to have to deal with the same gambling problem. It's not any, like, when you see the Iowa and Iowa State are going through this, believe me, I don't think it's, for the most part, anything illicit where the schools are trying to cover anything up. The schools are just finding this stuff out and maybe getting around to the point like, oh, crap, it's really easy to gamble. So, like, those things I don't even put on the coaches so much as now it's another thing they've got to put under their purview. But this, for them, is the thing they have to do is score more points.
Yeah, and while you're talking there, I went and did look up, and I just now see an article where Hunter Deckers is a part of that investigation. So, I'd seen him. I just didn't know if that was – I just should have read more into it, but I didn't know if that was like you wouldn't speculate about that. I should have known better as far as that goes. You wouldn't name somebody in something like that, especially a college athlete. But, yeah, he's caught up in that to some extent, and I guess just the severity, I guess, if you will, is just what we don't quite know as far as Hunter Deckers goes. But, yeah, I mean, they just have to be better on offense. I mean, bottom line, they were atrocious, as I read off just a few moments ago, some of their results from last year. I mean, one more touchdown, and they're like a 10-win team because their defense played well enough to limit teams to, pretty respectable outputs that you certainly, in most cases, would be able to surpass. So you do lose some big pieces on defense. I mean, Will McDonald's Defensive Player of the Year. What was it? MJ, is it Anderson? Maybe I'm getting wrong in my mind. But, I mean, they lose some good players on defense, but defense is not what I worry about with them.
Yeah, MJ Anderson.
Okay, yeah.
Seahawks now, yeah.
Yeah, but they got their secondaries back, and their secondary should be nasty. They should be really good in the back end. But, can they score enough points? Because the defense will stop people, but you got to be able to put up more than a couple of touchdowns every week, especially in a league where there's going to be a lot of air raid and a lot of wide open offenses. So, yeah, score more points, and you should see drastically different results so long as the defense holds up its end of the bargain.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Alexis Cubitt. Thanks to David Rumsey. Thanks to John McClain. And I'm leaving somebody out. Thanks to James Crepea. Again, that was a great interview that we had with him yesterday. Thanks to everybody who's been a part of the show. We're back again tomorrow with another episode. Have a great night, everybody.